Cool. Welcome everybody back to Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Pal. Good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you are, good night. And I'm going to be doing another live stream today, focusing on the news and giving you my perspective on it. So hope you join me. I'm going to jump right in. Hopefully some people will join. I don't know if anybody's in right now at the moment, but I'll have this up so I can see as people join. I'll be in the chat as usual. And yeah, let me just get right into the stories here. Let me switch over to this view. There we go. Okay, so yeah, first and foremost, we've got some good news to share. There's a really cool website called farmtransformers.org that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention. This website is basically a success story. It's a collection of success stories from various farms that have since become you know, either sanctuaries or basically given up their... Hey Dave, thanks for joining. Welcome. So this yeah, this first you know, story that I'm sharing here is it's basically a website that shows various farms that have turned into sanctuaries. So you can go through the various examples they have, different places. There's examples from all over the world, people that have given up their you know, farming of animals to adopt veganic farming principles. And it's great to see, you know, people making sanctuaries and taking care of the animals that you know, were in their possession, I guess, or whatever. And yeah, it's just nice to see. So if anybody wants to use this as a resource, I highly recommend it, especially if you're engaged with people online. And a lot of farmers and stuff will often say, okay, but what am I supposed to do? You know, this is the only thing I have for income. This is, you know, this is my way of life, etc., etc. I love the animals, blah blah blah. You know, all the typical kind of things that you know, farmers will come back with usually when engaging with vegans. And feel free to send them to this, because, you know, this gives them hope that they can do something else. They can still be profitable perhaps by adopting veganic farming, or, you know, they can just maybe do some kind of like ecotourism, or there's a million other things. And you know, really it's a nice to be able to share like actual successes instead of just telling them, well, you go figure it out, it's your business. So yeah, I think this is a kind of a nice thing to share. So check that out if you guys get a chance. Again, it's farmtransformers.org, and I'll put in all the links as usual after the stream is done, so anybody can, you know, check out this stuff. This next one comes from Scotland. It's an opinion piece trying to get people to basically become aware of a golfing development that you know, people are trying to push through the planners, despite a lot of local opposition and environmental concerns. And I think it's just a good thing to highlight. So this is from the beginning of March here, this article, and they're basically highlighting that this place, where is the place? Gleneagles in Perthshire. And they have a proposal for a luxury golf course. It's being put forward by two ridiculously wealthy people. So there's this, where is the name? Oh yeah, U.S. developers Todd Warnick and the golf course tycoon Mike Kaiser. Of course, they claim that it's going to make jobs and provide the local economy, you know, 60 million pounds in the next 10 years. But as the article points out, there have been similar claims made by other developers, and they have failed to materialize. Also, the environmental impact is huge. Golf courses, in case anybody doesn't know, cause a lot of damage to the local, you know, basically environment, the ecology, the animals, the grasses themselves. You know, golf courses use like a specific type of grass. They will often go in and strip the entire top layer of soil and put in their own grass, because that's the, you know, the kind of turf that you need for playing golf. And they give some examples here about how Donald Trump's golf course just up the way at Many was waved through in the face of objections. about damage to the globally unique dune system. And almost 7 years later, the promises of jobs and investment parroted by Trump and some well-connected local supporters have yet to materialize. So again, just pointing out that yes, you know, they can claim whatever they want about how much money it's going to give to people, but oftentimes that doesn't even actually happen. Of course, the developers are making money, and of course the people running the golf course are making money, and of course the fabulously wealthy people who can afford to play at these exclusive, you know, golf resorts. They don't care, but you know, for everyone else, and as this article points out, these areas are basically like a world heritage. This site is extremely, you know, important to the local wildlife and the fauna that grows there, and you know, they're basically saying that, I love this quote here at the end, the developers claim only a small part of the site will be altered, but that's like painting a mustache on the Mona Lisa and saying only a small area has been affected. So kudos to this person for writing this opinion piece. I hope they do block it. I don't know, you know, whether there have been any further developments on this, but maybe anybody watching from the UK or Scotland specifically, maybe if you guys, you know, are on this, and then let me know how, you know, what the development is gonna, you know, come up. Hey Jen, hey Meat is Murder, welcome. People have a fundamental right to golf. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a golfer, so yeah, I don't know that I would put the needs of a golfer above a local, you know, ecology and ecosystem and animals, and even the grasses, honestly. Even if there were no animals on there, I would still kind of prefer that it would just be like this instead of the manicured green, you know, almost looks completely fake kind of golf course view. I don't think we should be messing around with this kind of beautiful area, but I'm sure you were saying that in jest. And welcome. So next up, I got a bunch of good news. Disneyland now has a vegan craft brewery, so for anybody who enjoys a tasty beer every once in a while, and if you're going to Disney, they have a craft beer tap room, and they now serve some vegan options, so that is pretty cool. It says guests can also enjoy plates of lettuce cups filled with Impossible Foods plant-based meat, peppers, hoisin sauce, sriracha, blah 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 blah, a whole bunch of stuff. So soy rizo and cauliflower tacos. So I mean, it works. You can get a whole bunch of different stuff, and kudos to them for giving more vegan options. So yeah, just wanted to share that. George Carlin, American comedian, did a stand-up routine about this topic. Oh man, I have to see that. I'm actually kind of a, I would say like a casual fan of George Carlin. I definitely don't know all his stuff, and I you know, I wouldn't even claim to be any kind of expert, but from what I've seen of his stuff, I actually like him a lot, and I think he's had a lot of good things to say about a lot of different kinds of things, so I'll have to check that out. Thanks for the recommendation. Aldi launches vegan Easter eggs with Ferrero Rocher style chocolates. This is in the UK, and Aldi is stocking vegan chocolate Easter eggs. So for anybody in the UK, go, you know, if you celebrate Easter, or even if you don't and you just want a tasty vegan chocolate, hit up Aldi. So kudos to them. Get more options out there for people, and yeah, cool. Next up, margarine giant Flora. They are changing their entire line to be fully 100% vegan. So apparently, I think some of the stuff they had some dairy in it. I don't usually buy this kind of stuff, but I mean, occasionally for like some pastries and treats and stuff, like we've had to use you know, margarine or vegan butter or whatever, and I've definitely bought a few different kinds, and it's nice to see. I definitely know the brand. I mean, I've seen it in the stores near here, and it's nice to hear that their entire range is going to be vegan. Now, you know, with all that said, you know, kudos to them, and you know, I obviously do consume this kind of stuff every once in a while, but it's certainly, if anybody follows my, you know, cooking and recipe kind of stuff, like, you'll know it's really not something I encourage you to consume regularly. Like, I don't think just because it's vegan it's healthy, so I will, you know, give that caveat that I don't think it's you know, a smart idea to be eating this stuff like regularly. Oils and processed you know, spreads like this are usually not very good for you. But at least it doesn't have dairy in it, and at least it isn't going to be containing the cruelty end product of of the dairy industry. So kudos to them. They're actually saying that they've reformulated the entire line, and they are saying that it's actually going to be better tasting as well. I can't remember where I read that quote here, but oh yeah, more delicious than ever. Our new 100% plant goodness range can be enjoyed by the whole family. Plant-based nutrition is at the heart of the Upfield business, and Flora, with its plant goodness, is set to lead the charge and marks a key moment for us in the wider category. So, I just think it's good news, regardless. Let's see, Jen says, Flora had a vegan butter in Netherlands, but they stopped stocking it, not enough demand or something. Oh, that sucks. But maybe this will change now if they still stock Flora at all, because it'll be, their whole range will be vegan now. So maybe, hopefully you'll be able to get this if you need it. So this is pretty good. Next up, this was something that maybe some of you have already seen, especially if you followed me on Twitter. I shared this story, and there were lots of comments and stuff, and lots of people shared this. So actually a lot of people I follow shared this as well. But a vegan pie won the top awards recently, and it caused a bunch of outrage. So there's this guy, I think, Vegan Foot Soldier did a really awesome video about this as well. There was this, some Michelin star chef basically complained about this and just said, like, yeah, this is ridiculous, like, what are, like, vegans doing, and, blah, 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 and, where was this? Yeah, here it is. Pies are supposed to be filled with the most delicious morsels of steak and liver and kidney, with the jelly and little pieces of fat in the middle delicately dripping onto your tongue. I mean, this just the description alone is absolutely disgusting to me. Like, now that I don't eat this kind of stuff. A vegan pie, give me a break. The oldest culinary art form left in the world, and the vegans have taken it away. It's a disgrace. The millennials have taken over. It's not a pie competition, it's a pie in the sky competition. We should all just retire now. And so I just say, yeah, Mr. Corrigan, yeah, he should retire. Because in this day and age, if you can't make something tasty and make it be vegan, you're doing something wrong. And clearly this guy is, not in the now, and he's not living in the, the hip vegan days. So I think his work is going to be limited. He probably should retire now if he thinks that this is, going to change anytime soon. So yeah, they basically picked the vegan pie to be the best one. And it's actually funny because the guy who won, he's not even a vegan, he's a butcher. And yeah, like, this was the first vegan pie he had made, actually, I think. And yeah, this is the first time in the event's 11-year history that a vegan pie has taken the top prize. So yeah, cool. Congratulations to the guy for making it. Hopefully it shows him that he needs to make more vegan stuff. And so yeah, Jen, you were right. Yep. The pie maker was a butcher, and I think he's an Irish guy, actually. What was his name? Mr. Thorner, but what is his name? Oh, John Thorner. He made a curried sweet potato, butternut squash, and spinach entry. It was named Supreme Champion. It beat out 886 other competitors. So that's a huge field. I mean, this is like it's really awesome to see. Like, this wasn't just like, oh, he beat out 3 other contestants and then he was named the best pie. Like, that's like an insane amount of competition. So he's best out of 886, other competitors. That's pretty awesome. Hey, Emmanuel, thanks for joining, man. Welcome. So yeah, kudos to him, and shame on the other guy. And maybe he can use some of his Michelin star skills to, like, learn some new, vegan recipes and stop whining. Here's another pie going vegan. So this is a 140-year-old pie company called Frey Bentos. I don't know if this is something specific. I haven't seen this brand. I'm not familiar with this. I don't know if it's probably not worldwide, but they've been making pies since 1881, it says. And they basically made a new pie, which is vegan. So it's really cool. It's their first vegan offering. Oh, it's a Scottish pie maker. Okay, so maybe that's why I haven't seen it. But probably the people in the UK, you guys maybe see it. So yeah, they've been making pies for quite a long time, and it's really awesome. And it says the company is now owned by Baxter. Says its decision to make the shift can be in part be attributed to the recent vegan sausage launched by the UK bakery chain Greggs. The sausage, which launched in early January to coincide with the UK's Veganuary campaign, was a runaway hit. It sold out across the country, and the chain says it topped $1 billion in sales for the first time because of the sales of the vegan roll. So, you know, I guess this is like a big, you know, let's just say, you know, one of these fingers up to Piers Morgan, and, you know, maybe he'll be upset about something else that he can pretend to be sick from and throw up on TV. Good luck to this company, and hopefully they make more vegan stuff. Hi, Bev. Welcome. Oh, meat is murder. Yeah, you grew up eating these pies, huh? I mean, it's like, it's sad when you think about, like, you know, how indoctrinated we all were. I mean, most people aren't born vegan. Most people eat this stuff, and it's normal, and that's just how everybody was raised. You know, everybody I know. I don't know anybody who was born vegan. So I think nowadays we're seeing more and more people who are getting that opportunity, and it's wonderful. But I think most people, you know, that's not the case. And it's nice if, like, you know, you have that kind of like comfort food or some kind of like connection back to your childhood. Like, oh, I remember when I ate this pie, and man, you know, grandma made it for me, or my mom made it for me, well, whoever, you know. And then you can get the vegan version and just be like, oh yeah, it tastes just like it, you know, and you get that nice warm fuzzy feeling, but you didn't have to like harm any animals for it. So yeah, it's like, I think it's a good thing. Hey, Race, welcome. Nice. Well, we just talked about a vegan pie that won the Best in Show, or whatever it was called, the Supreme Pie in the UK, and this is a really awesome thing to see. So yep. Gordon Ramsay tells Piers Morgan to F himself over vegan roast row. So yeah, basically Gordon Ramsay has you know, been trying to cash in on the vegan you know, thing now, and he shared a picture of one of his meals which used a you know, a vegan roast as kind of the centerpiece, and Piers Morgan retweeted the dish to his followers saying, "Oh, FFS, Ramsay, not you as well. This looks utterly revolting." And so I guess like Mr. Ramsay was on some interview, and he basically responded, and this was the great quote here. Ramsay said, "So Piers Morgan is now a food critic. Go and F yourself. Seriously, vegan is on the rise, and we've got to adapt and eat a slice of humble pie." So this guy, regardless of his morals, I don't know how, you know, likely he is to ever become a vegan, but he's at least savvy enough and smart enough as a businessman to realize, like, okay, look, man, you know, you either beat them or you join them. Like, you're not going to beat them, so you may as well join them. Like, it's that simple, you know. I think, you know, you don't have to be a fan of the vegan, you know, ideology or, you know, philosophy or whatever, but if you're a businessman, like, and you're not getting on board now, like, you're really missing out. And on that note, you know, here is another article which was quite interesting. So vegan company Beyond Meat, they have a plan to lower prices, and it could be disastrous for the meat industry. So the CEO was saying that what was it? He's saying 93% of people who purchase the company's products in grocery stores are meat eaters. And they are saying that right now the burger, for example, retails at $5.99 for 2 patties, is 71% more expensive than even organic grass-fed beef when compared pound for pound. But that might be about to change, according to Brown, who told Forbes that the company is now making investments into alternative plant sources that would lower cost. There's no reason this couldn't be cheaper than meat, and to get there we need to make investments in the supply chain. So they're basically confident that they're going to be able to get other sources of plant protein, do other kinds of things in their processing, and basically get to the point that they are being able to sell this as cheaper than conventional meat. And if they do that, I mean, you can imagine, like, they already have like 93% of the people buying this stuff who are meat eaters, and there are tweets and, you know, things all over social media about people who are meat eaters who are saying, like, look, man, I could live with this thing. Like, this is like as good or better than any kind of hamburger I'm buying. And if you can make it be that good and be cheaper, like, why on earth would anybody buy the meat? So yeah, this is just awesome stuff. Good luck. Hopefully they can do that. And yeah, here it is. This is delicious. I'm the most carnivorous person I know, and I'm happy to switch to this for the rest of my life. Boom. You know, so it's like, if you can get whoever this person is and their, you know, family buying this stuff because it's cheaper and it tastes just as good or better, you know, they're gonna do it. Let's see. Ramsay has changed his tune. Yep, the money. It's all about the Benjamins, as they had the song for the U.S. crowd, and I don't know if you have the equivalent there. Meat is murder for the pounds, but yeah, the sterling, man. That's it. He's smart. That's what they're gonna do. Generally, avant-garde vegan reviewed the food and wasn't too impressed. You know, I don't know. I haven't had it myself, and that you know, what's his name? Gaz, right? Gaz Oakley is the avant-garde vegan. That guy makes such ridiculously amazing looking stuff that, like, his recipes are probably going to be way better than anything you can buy, like, in the store. But, you know, that's not even the point. Like you don't have to make this by yourself at home and whatever. You just go to the store and buy it just like you would from the, you know, the meat aisle, and it's just, you know, you move your hand 1 foot down the aisle and you pick this up instead. I mean, let's be honest, like, most people buying, like, you know, ground beef to make hamburgers at home on the grill, they are not, you know, connoisseurs. They're not fancy chefs. They're not going to be like, they're not going to be looking at this and being like, oh, it's not as good as that, you know, like, I don't know, $30 whatever, you know, fancy chef made, you know, boutique burger that I had. Like, they're going to be comparing it to a McDonald's, and I'm sure it's better than that. So I don't know, I'll check out the review, but I suspect it's something like that. Gordon made the smart play. Absolutely he did, Race. He's not stupid. He might be a jerk, but he's not stupid. Meat is murder. Anyone remember the song Gordon is a Moron? I don't know it. I'll sing it to you if I can. Oh, there's a link. Cool. I'm gonna open that for later. Let me just pause that. Alright, there we go. Alright, let's see. What else are we going to? Ramsay also had a breakfast option with tofu scramble. Why is it starting? There we go. Ramsay also had a breakfast option with tofu scramble, caption like, who knew tofu could be so tasty? Anyone who's been vegan more than a minute, and there was a recipe, no garlic, no nooch. Yeah, I mean, he'll learn, and I'm sure if he sees that there's money in it, he's gonna do it. Bev, gotta love Gaz, fellow Welshie. Oh, I didn't know that. Cool. I don't watch enough of his stuff, but what I have seen, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, Gaz Oakley, that guy's just legit crazy. Like, he's like, I don't even know, he's like a wizard. Like, he makes stuff that looks like it's meat or whatever. Like, I mean, it's just crazy. And even the stuff he does that's like not, you know, meat based or whatever, like, I've seen him make just like hummus and like chia pudding or whatever, but like it's like my chia pudding, and then there's like the artistic, like, you know, whatever, I don't know, beautiful version that he makes. It's like, I'm sure it's probably maybe like 15.5% tastier than mine, but that's all right. That was related to the Ramsay roast. Okay, cool. Hey Vohan, thanks for joining. Nice. All right, so let's just keep going here. Next up, vegan meat category is a $3 trillion opportunity. Now this you know, this article I think is like a little bit of a kind of like investor speak, so I think, you know, this is kind of like trying to get people to obviously invest in these companies, which is fine. But again, this is coming from the CEO of Impossible Foods, Pat Brown. Company creates vegan meat products like the Bleeding Impossible Burger, made the comments in an interview with CBNC. He explained that the market for animal products as a whole is predicted to be worth around $3 trillion in 10 years' time. It's huge, he explained. The means of making these products, however, is currently outdated. This leaves the door open for food technology companies like Impossible Foods and competitor Beyond Meat to swoop in and transform the industry, he maintained. The current meat industry is based on prehistoric technology that hasn't improved in thousands of years, using animals to turn plants into food, he said. It's fundamentally unimprovable. He continued, if there's one thing that we know, it's that when an ancient, unimprovable technology counters a better technology that is continuously improvable, it's just a matter of time before the game is over, he added. I think our investors see this as a $3 trillion opportunity. Now, obviously, I think, you know, maybe it's, I think whenever you have the CEO of any company trying to, you know, kind of hype their prospects, like, of course, they're going to try to take, like, the whole, like, global, like, probably, like, food, you know, economy kind of figure and tout that. But he's fundamentally right. I mean, like, the way that meat is produced is outdated, and there's no stopping this kind of advancement. The more people wake up to the reality, the environmental impact, you know, the water impact, you know, all of these kinds of things, the health impacts, the ethical, you know, impacts, like, there's just no way people will continue supporting this in the face of it being cheaper, cleaner, you know, better for you, and obviously, you know, better for the animals. Like, it's a dying industry, and people like Ramsay, you know, Gordon Ramsay, or other people like that are in the business, they're either going to get on the wave and ride it, or they're going to be left behind, and that's ultimately, I think, you know, what this the point of these articles are. All right, let's see. Liam Anthony, hey Liam, welcome. That fan though. Meat is finished. Jen, have you seen Vegan Zombie's Impossible Burger Experience? No, I haven't. I do know the Vegan Zombie. I like his channel, but I'm so bad. I hardly watch anything. It's like been so busy the past few months, so I'll have to check into that too. Sverige though, well, he's gonna be like, who knows? Maybe he's gonna have to resort to human cannibalism, you know, in the future, if he's still alive by then. You know, he very well might die from his high cholesterol by then, but I mean, who knows? Like, we'll see. Race Lover, the real reason veganism is growing is because of my vegan dance moves. It's certainly possible. And then, sorry to ruin anybody's appetites here, and I do apologize for the picture, but I do want to show some interesting information here from this article. Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's, and Aldi reveal how much contaminated chicken they sold last year. I think this article was actually really kind of interesting. They're talking about Campylobacter bacteria specifically. And speaking of Sverige meat is murder, you guys might remember in my debunking video, I actually talked about the time when he got a Campylobacter infection, and he had one of his arms, I guess, be paralyzed, like he couldn't open doors and stuff with it, because he was eating some raw bone marrow, I think it was. And anyway, Campylobacter is typically found on poultry and can lead to vomiting, diarrhea, and even paralysis. And they have been tracking it since 2017, when it was brought to the public's attention that the issue was huge. The shocking extent of contamination in British supermarkets made headlines. And that year, chains such as Tesco was forced to recall chicken products due to concerns that contained the harmful bacteria. And then since then, the FSA has changed its approach, so they do an annual survey, but also the companies themselves are doing their own kind of testing. So what is Campylobacter? It's a bacteria. It can include vomiting, severe stomach cramps, and in extreme cases paralysis. It's the most common cause of food poisoning in the UK. It affects 280,000 people a year. Now, bear in mind, this is just the UK. You can imagine, you start adding the US figures, other countries around the world. I mean, it's a huge problem. And anyway, what's interesting here is that they say that human infection usually results from eating or handling raw or undercooked meat, and of course from cross-contamination. So it's like if you have the raw chicken on your cutting board, and you know you're cutting up the stuff, some of it will get on the cutting board. You don't wash the cutting board fully well or perfectly, and then you chop up, like, say, your potatoes or whatever, or let's say you cut up something that you're not you know, not cooking, like a salad or tomatoes or something like that, and then you eat that, then you're going to be contaminated. Because even if you're cooking the chicken and you're not going to get sick from the chicken directly, you're going to get sick from the stuff on the cutting board of the knife if it hasn't been washed completely well. So it's a pretty interesting thing. Let me see what the comments are here. Real reason, oh, MSA, okay, factual, not just possible. Cool. Jen, VZ was at an expo, and they were giving out free samples of the new vegan meat, then said it had dairy cheese in it. What is VZ? I don't know. What is that, Jen? VZ was at an expo. That's absolutely terrible. Like, why would they do that? That's crazy. Vohan, the carnivores are a bunch of silly bastards. Well, yeah, they are. The fake carnivores, as Ray says. Well, of course they are, because they go to the supermarket and they just buy it on a trade. Chris has done a great ex-vegan video too. Chris who? Tell me, Jen. Oh, Vegan Zombie. Jeez, I don't know his name. I just know the Vegan Zombie. Okay, cool. Oh, and Vegan Zombie. Thank you. Vegan Zebra. Okay, thanks, Race. Thanks, guys. Sorry, it's like once I've switched topics, it's hard to jump back sometimes. Anyway, okay, so there was a big egg scandal too. Meat is murder says. Yep. Or do you mean Chris as in the Vegan Zombie? Is that his name too? I don't know. All the ex-vegans are probably sharing cutting boards with their carny friends. Well, some of them are just, I don't even know what they do, man. It's like, it's crazy. I wonder how truthful they are about their diets too. Especially the people who are only eating meat. Like, I really don't know. A few of those people I think might be honest sometimes. Because you have like the, you know, people like, what was the guy's name? The Meteor Man. Like, that guy actually admitted that he had scurvy, you know, and then he started eating some berries and stuff. So at least he was being honest. But I don't think most of these guys are being honest. Let's see. Racelar, you should always refer to them as fake carnivores people. There is no such thing as a physiological human carnivore. Yep, let's call them out. Yeah, check out Vegan Zombies video. It's really great. I will try and watch it. So getting back to this article here. This was what was interesting to me. It almost, you like read it and you're like, oh, that doesn't seem so bad. It's like if you're playing, you know, Russian roulette, like having a 3% chance doesn't sound so bad. The latest figures show that on average across 9 major retailers, 3.1% of the chicken samples tested from October to December last year carried more than 1,000 colony-forming units per gram of Campylobacter, the highest level of contamination, significantly below the FSA's target of less than 7% in the high category. It's like, it's so funny that their target is less than 7. So it's like they've set the target pretty high. Make sure that, you know, nobody gets scared and that people don't start boycotting this stuff and, you know, maybe not buying chicken for fear of getting sick. But anyway, what was interesting here is that it says have evidently been working on the issue as a steady decrease was present in 2018, which started with 3.8% of the samples in the high category in January to March. It's not all good news, though, as those with the low-level contamination, below 10 colony-forming units per gram, were on the rise, starting the year at 59%, but ending 2018 on 63%. So you have to realize that 63, so almost two-thirds of the chicken that is sold by the 9 major retailers is infected with Campylobacter. It's just that they've like arbitrarily set these limits so low that it's considered low contamination risk, because it's like, you know, it's 10 colony forming units per gram or lower. So it's just insane. You know, you figure almost 2/3 of the chicken is infected. It's absolutely crazy. You know, is it any wonder that the people in the U.S. Throw bleach on their chicken or whatever it is to disinfect it? I mean, people are insane. Like, you see these kind of statistics and you still want to buy this stuff. Like, even if you're not a vegan, even if you don't care about the ethics, like, why on earth would you risk, you know, the vomiting, severe stomach cramps, and the extreme, you know, paralysis? Crazy stuff. Yeah, I need to get a mic. Race, go on my Patreon page and send me some money, and then I'm going to buy a mic. I promise. Or anybody else, too. Okay, next. But I will buy a mic even if nobody supports me on Patreon, because I do feel bad for anybody who's suffering through the computer noise. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to also try moving the computer down off the table. But that would require a reworking of my whole desk, and I will do it, but I haven't had really time or a chance to do it yet. You're not my daddy? Okay, well, that's all right. Maybe somebody else can be. All right, another great story. How Atlanta is turning ex-cons into urban farmers. An ambitious young activist is using the local food movement to help break the cycle of incarceration. So there's this wonderful lady. What is her name? It was somewhere right here in the beginning. Abiodun Henderson. She is basically helping people get their life back in order. She's teaching them about farming. They are growing their own food. They're going and selling hot sauce at farmers markets and all this other kind of stuff. They're really trying to help the local community, and you know, I just think this is so awesome. It's giving people like a chance for, you know, doing something else. I see Mr. Kaepernick here, which is awesome. I don't know if any of these people are vegan or not, but you guys know how I feel about gardening, and I really, really, truly believe that like getting people gardening, it's like life transforming kind of change. I think once people start growing their own food, they start getting connected to the earth like that, you really start seeing kind of the impacts and thinking about, you know, how resources are, you know, kind of required to make that food for you and all this kind of stuff. I just think this is awesome, and the fact that there's this, you know, beautiful human element to this, you know, I just can't say enough nice things about this lady. Check out this article. I encourage everybody to read through it, and you get to see, you know, some of these young people's lives, how they've been transformed, and you know what kind of changes it's given them, like a hope, you know, and an actual chance to do something that is not just return to crime after being released from prison. So they are making money. They are selling their you know, produce, and you know, helping their local communities and stuff. So I just can't say enough good about this kind of stuff. Definitely check it out, and encourage and, you know, help people like this, especially if you're in the area. So definitely check out this article. I love it. Let's see what's up, guys. Missed a bunch of comments. Tell your wife no mic, no lovin'. If that doesn't get it done, there's something wrong on your end. Okay, guys. Thanks, Bev. Alright, once you can donate for here, I might do that, but Patreon seems like a whole other hassle. Okay, well, I mean, yeah, try to get more people to sign up too. I have passed 700 subscribers, so I'm super happy about that. I think once I go over 1,000, then I'll be eligible for the super chat stuff, so that would be cool too, and that'll be another way people can, you know, support me. One thing that in the future I will definitely be doing is making t-shirts, and I'll probably try to, you know, get some, you know, revenue coming in from that as well. I have a bunch of really good slogans or like ideas or little graphics and stuff, but I just have not had time to actually like do it. But that is something that I definitely hope to do in the future. I have some really good, like, kind of funny little, you know, things to put on t-shirts as like little slogans and stuff, so hopefully that should work too. Let's see, Bev, you can sign up, pledge what you want, and then sign right off. Yep, that is true. Or, you know, even just sign up for like the minimum, like it's like $1 a month, I think is the lowest tier I put. Hi, Sarah Bennett, welcome. Ray Slayer says, gardening is for bitches, go crochet or knit something like a real man. Nice. Maybe you could do both, like, you know, you do a food forest, and then you sit out there and enjoy the birds chirping and everything, and you knit and crochet. That would be really like Uberman. Like that's the most manly of all things to do. All right, how the sapphire trade is driving lemurs towards extinction. So Madagascar has like a super high concentration of like gemstones. I think it's like what are the green ones? Is it emeralds? I don't even know. But anyway, this article talks about how people are doing illegal, you know, basically mining and strip mining. Oh, sapphires, that's it. Yeah, sapphire mines. And they're basically destroying the habitat for lemurs. They talk about how lemurs need a lot of land. The groups that they live in have to be able to kind of like intermingle, and they cover vast distances, and a lot of times these mining areas cut off the, you know, populations from each other, so they're not able to kind of reproduce, and they're not able to, you know, access a lot of the stuff that they need. They need the trees to be safe, and this article really talks a lot about what is happening, and talks about the you know, the basically the human needs that people are putting themselves, you know, first. They're very poor. People who are buying these precious stones are, you know, obviously not considering that, like, when you go to a store in like a Western, you know, country, you're paying like some ridiculous amount of money for like a precious stone, but very, very small fractions of that money goes back to the people who are doing this really difficult mining work, and they're basically destroying their homeland to do it. And you know, this article is really good. It like really explains kind of like, you know, what are some of the impacts, and what are the, you know, things that are being done about it, why the government isn't able to stop it, why people are willing to do this like kind of work. They make extremely little money, and the only really kind of positive part of this story is at the end, where they actually start talking about how there are now, you know, more and more efforts being you know, made to protect the forests for the animals and for people as well. And there are some examples. This is a really long article. I can't remember where I read it. It was down kind of near the end. Let's see, where was it? It was just, I really do want to share it with you guys, because they're talking about some of the efforts in the gem trade as well, to make sure that things are being sourced ethically and all this kind of stuff, but there's no way to really be sure of that. I mean, I would recommend people just don't buy this kind of stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous that, like, in today's day and age, like, you know, people are still destroying the earth just for some silly, you know, baubles and trinkets, but the people are suffering, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so restoring what's been lost. This is it. About 150 miles beyond the Kaza's southern border and an hour's drive east from the national park, there is this field station. I'm not going to pronounce these names, sorry about that. It's an outpost of the Madagascar Biodiversity Partnership, a non-profit started by Edward Lewis in 2010. Lewis, a conservation geneticist and veterinarian with Henry Dorley Zoo in Omaha, Nebraska, wanted to initiate science-driven, community-based projects in Madagascar to simultaneously nurture people and wildlife and help reforest the land. So basically, they are paying people to reforest some of these, you know, ruined areas that have been strip mined and stuff. And so you can see this guy's carrying all these trees that he's going to be planting, and they pay people like a really good wage to actually, you know, plant the trees. And then you can see here, what was it? The project's 19 nurseries employ more than 100 people and raise trees that are transplanted into deforested areas throughout the country. One goal is to help farmers acquire title to their land. In return, they agree to plant a portion of their fields with lemur-friendly trees. Since 2010, nearly 2 million trees have been planted, with survival rates approaching 80%, so that's pretty good. And then, you know, they are all, let's see here. Men were placing small sacks containing coffee, acacia, and cacao seedlings into woven baskets, 50 sacklets in each, which they carried down the hill and loaded onto a truck. The men get paid in credits or cash about $1.50 a day, almost 50% more than the average Madagascan makes. So that's pretty good. I mean, you know, it's like they're able to give them something else to do and still make money as farmers, still get, you know, titles to the land, that they can own it, as long as they're willing to plant trees that are friendly to the lemurs. And in fact, they can still even use some of those, you know, things for themselves, because the lemurs aren't going to eat all of that. So it's really cool. I think it's like the one thing in this story that I thought was like the ray of hope. But yeah, I mean, you know, I think if anything, I would just encourage people, like, don't buy precious stones of any kind. There's always some kind of human impact. There's always some kind of environmental impact, and there's obviously an animal impact as well. Yeah, I just think, like, we need to stop doing this kind of stuff. Let's see, what am I missing here? Ooh, lots of stuff. You guys are talking a lot. Jen says, first shirt I'd buy, race lever, message deleted. Oh man, it's a bit of a novelty item, or like it's like an inside joke kind of thing. But I think a lot of people would get it, actually, because race is so what's the word I'm thinking? Prolific. You're on so many videos. Bev, do the natural knitting in a kilt. Oh man, you guys are great. Bargain for the price. Nice. That's an insane figure. I love how it's rounded to 99 cents though at the end. That's really good. It's a deal. Manu, even if it was a hoax, the likelihood of it being real is so high that it would be stupid not to act on it. Santa Claus is not real. Oh man, you guys are doing the climate change as a hoax thing again? His elves they killed him because Santa was vegan. Well, scientists have become the new deities. Liam has become the new Alex Jones, only less attractive. Bill Clinton is okay. I'm not gonna read that one. I mean, he kind of is, but that's neither here nor there. I'm going to talk about some climate change stuff in a little bit, so stick around, Liam. Peru moves to protect one of the last great intact forests. So while the United States may be weakening protections for wilderness, the creation of Yaguas National Park protects millions of acres from development and deforestation. This is fantastic news. It comes in from February of this year. They are taking a huge area. It's going to be millions of acres of roadless wilderness. The indigenous people who rely on it, and they're going to protect it from development and deforestation. They're saying this is one of the last, intact forests. They have amazing animals not found anywhere else. It's sad that they have this little fish on somebody's finger here. Why don't they just leave it in the water? But anyway, the point is they have animals that are not found anywhere else in the world. Tons of different fish and all this kind of stuff. And here it is. You can see it's quite a big land area. And more than 1,000 people belonging to at least 6 indigenous groups live along a 125-mile stretch of the Yaguas and Putumayo rivers. To them, this place is called Sachamama, a Quechua word roughly translating mother jungle, the sacred heart of the area that produces the flora and fauna on which the groups depend. So great news. I hope the rest of the world follows. I mean, look at some of these beautiful creatures. I've never even seen some of these things. I mean, they're just like so cool. So yeah, it's just awesome. Kudos to them. Next, I've talked about this before a little bit, how in a lot of places in Canada, homeless shelters will not allow people to bring in their companion animals, and this has actually caused some people to freeze to death, or they've lost their animals. They've frozen to death on really cold nights because they won't go in and they won't leave their animals out. And this is not a problem that's only found in Canada. Here in Hungary, that's the same kind of thing. In fact, I've also found out that a lot of homeless shelters here, they won't allow couples to stay together. They have to be separated. So there's men only sections and women only sections. There's only, I think, like 1 or 2 shelters here in Budapest that will allow a couple to stay together in the shelter. So that also keeps a lot of people from going in, even if it's like basically that they're facing freezing to death. So this new shelter is going to be open for companion animals as well, and they are hoping that it encourages and actually this is geared to young people as well. I forgot about that. So it's 15 to 24-year-olds, and they will have a kennel for their non-human friends. So yeah, you've seen them on the streets with their dogs. None of these kids asked for this, but they turned down help and shelter because they would never take refuge and leave their best friend on the street. Their dog is their sole confidant. So hopefully, people are able to get help there. The site is going to be open in mid-March. Hopefully it's already open. I don't know. But good news for the homeless in Toronto. If anybody can help, if you're watching from that area, I would say, try to find out if you can. So it says YouthLink is opening the site in Scarborough, Toronto later this month. Go check it out. What are you guys talking about now? Oh man. Alright. Vegan Manifesto. If anybody remembers Celine Nelson, she was the lady who got the Waitrose magazine editor William Sitwell kind of in trouble when he replied to her, joking around about killing vegans for a TV show and stuff. So she wrote this really awesome opinion piece. I'm not really going to go through it. I just wanted to give her kudos and mention it in case anybody wants to read it. You can. I'll have the links as usual at the end. I'll put them in the comments. But basically, she just wrote a vegan manifesto, basically saying like, look, there's lots of reasons why people, give excuses about why they don't want to go vegan or can't go vegan or whatever. But those excuses are falling one by one. The world is changing. It's time to go vegan. And she makes great cases for the health aspect, the ethical aspect, the environmental aspect, and yeah, it's a good piece. It's not super long. I mean, that's pretty much it right there. So it's not a huge read, but kudos to Celine. I follow her on Twitter. She's got pretty good posts. Definitely check her out if you're interested. Next up, I got a bunch of sea news stories. So this one is coming from the state of Washington in the U.S. They found that there was a spill of raw sewage dumped into the waterway. Here it is, Kitsap County's Sinclair Inlet. They realized that there were about 4,000 gallons of raw sewage that got, spilled over there into the naval shipyard. They don't know what caused it or whatever. They were investigating, but they advised swimmers and anybody else, like kayakers or anything where you might be coming in contact with the water, to avoid it. They said at least till the Sunday after. So this was already, yeah, March 8th. It was a little while ago. It's probably clear now, but very sad to see. Hope they, you know, find out what happened and try to avoid this kind of thing happening again. People can get sick from this kind of stuff. I once got sick, actually, when it turned out that somebody had dumped raw sewage from their boat in a lake that I went swimming in. And it was from actually quite a ways away, so you couldn't see anything. But lots of people got sick. I think probably like 2,000 people got sick at that time. So, you know, hopefully people learned about this in time, but it's a real serious problem. Liam says homeless population in LA is causing a typhus outbreak. Seriously, dirty homeless people affect rats and stuff. It's becoming a serious epidemic. Bev says similar situation in Sheffield, UK. Let's see, digs and homeless volunteered at Christmas project, and the poor pups were exiled to outside. Oof, yeah, that's awful. Vohan, yeah, talking about Celine. Her email was absolutely polite, and the guy just totally was a nutter. I think it was actually very justified for him to lose his job. I talked about that in a previous stream as well. Like, it was just totally uncalled for the way he replied, and I don't think the sarcasm was really, you know, like, it wasn't good humor. It was just, you could feel more like anger and animosity than sarcasm or like joking around. I think he really did kind of come off like really, really bad. Liam, true or false? A study done by the dairy industry is automatically wrong because it's funded by them. False. It's not automatically wrong. It often is, but not because they funded it. But obviously, their intent in funding it is to try and show some kind of benefit, or at least neutrality towards their product. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's automatically false. UK set to ditch overfishing safeguards despite Green Brexit promise. So this is kind of a sad story, but they're saying decision not to adopt EU legal duty to end overfishing from 2020 came after fishing interests asked for the target to be watered down. So basically, basically the industry lobbied people, and they are trying to push to lower the the thresholds of what is considered sustainable yields fishing in the UK. So it's definitely a step backwards, as they say here. Hope this does not go through, but yeah, I don't know, kind of sad. Like, people don't realize like how bad the fishing industry is, and how likely it is that overfishing is going to just basically make it, go the way of the dodo. Like, people just aren't going to be able to fish anymore at all, and we are destroying the ocean. Let's see. Vohan says it's up to his bosses. Yeah, well, they thought so too, and that's why they fired him. Liam says, is Brexit happening and do people care? Vohan says it will happen. Yeah, I think lots of people care, Liam. If you look around on mainstream media, I think you get one kind of feel, and if you look around on social media, you get another kind of feel. I think a lot of people on both sides of the issue are very, very heated in their opinion, and yeah, there's a lot of people who are really upset about it happening, and there's a lot of people who are really happy about it, and in fact are threatening that if it doesn't happen, bad things will happen in the form of riots, basically. And I don't know. Let's see. Ray Slower says, pal, can you test the high IQ test? Spell IHOP, then say NES. Go quickly as possible. IHOPNESS. I'm terrible. I don't get it. I want states to exit from the Union. Liam, you should read the book Ecotopia. I talked about it last time. Check it out. I think you'd like it. Scientists to keep orcas, belugas in Russia's whale jail for 3 to 4 months. So as you guys remember, I talked about this before. Leonardo DiCaprio did an online petition that reached over 1 million people. Yeah, here it is. 1.2 million signatures were received in several months. and he asked the Russian government to investigate the belugas and other marine mammals that were captured and were being stored, awaiting shipment to China. And the government there apparently did step in. They sent the, whatever this is, Presidential Control Directorate to look at the federal laws and see if anything was violated. They are apparently going to be investigating and looking at this in further detail, but for now it looks like they are going to keep the poor animals in place until June and July, when the weather is better, I guess, and that's the earliest time that they can be moved. And yeah, it's kind of sad because I think a lot of people just wanted them to be released, but there are still 100 belugas and orcas waiting to be rescued. So they're saying that they're looking into it further. I don't have super high hopes, but I mean, it is getting more media attention. Hopefully that means that you know, the government will just do the right thing because they don't want to look bad, but we'll see what happens. I don't get it, Ray. Sorry, man. I'm going to move on because it's getting late here. Although second vote chance has slightly raised as we get closer to the deadline. Liam, the South didn't want to be part of the Union anymore. Lincoln wanted to grow the federal government and offered to make slavery permanently legal to keep them in the Union. South declined, and the tyrant Lincoln attacked the South. You just spelled the whole thing. Oh, yeah, I was supposed to say it. But anyway, over 1 million signatures for a second referendum. Wow. That's crazy. That's a lot. Okay, 1.7 tons of illegally caught juvenile sharks and fish were seized in Dubai. These poor animals were being sold. They were being sold illegally because they didn't fit the minimum size requirements, and they were also basically fining the people who were selling them. And I guess some of the fish markets were raided because these animals didn't fit the minimum, you know, size, you know, I guess regulations. They're basically saying that it's a huge problem because if you keep overfishing and catching these fish in times when they're supposed to be growing from the time that they're, you know, like little, you're going to basically, you know, eliminate the breeding capable population. And yeah, United Arab Emirates residents are to report violators of the UAE's fishing laws by calling the toll-free number and or its social media channels. So apparently they link it here. I shouldn't have clicked on X. It's going to jump away. Let me cancel. Go back. Sorry. And yeah, it's just really crazy. The reason why I wanted to share this as well is because when I shared this on Twitter, somebody said to me, like, you know, this is terrible, they shouldn't be referred to as by weight and stuff like this. And I just wanted to mention briefly that, like, yeah, the reason why fish and sea life in general is referred to by tons and by weight instead of by actual numbers is because there are so many of them being killed that the numbers of the animals themselves, to actually count them is pretty much impossible, or just not really, you know, practical. Like, there's just so many. When, you know, you count like land animals that are being farmed and killed for food, it's like in the number is in billions, but this number is in trillions. So the numbers are just so huge that like, I just think people just can't even really count them, or they don't even bother to because it's just so big. So they just do it by weight, and that's why I think a lot of the estimates that you see for marine life killed in a year is really just an estimate because people don't actually know. They're not counted, and it's just really sad. Thanks, Liam. I'm going to skip on that one too. Alright, new reports reveals that there are just 10 Vaquita left in the world. I have covered this before. I think it was maybe in one of my very first news live streams. These are these really cute little dolphins. They have these really kind of cute little smiling looking face. And I think, I don't remember the number that were still around then when I did this. They estimated the number to be like 20 or something. Now they're saying there's only 10 left. And it's in like really unlikely that they will survive. It's very, very sad. They're being killed and caught in gill nets. There are these other kind of fish which themselves are endangered, the totoaba, and they are catching those in illegal gill nets because they can sell the swim bladders of that fish for $46,000 per kilogram in China, because unfortunately there the people believe that these swim bladders have medicinal purposes, which is absolutely insane. And you know, they are now basically calling on the Mexican president to take immediate action. The report that they provided him said, given the gravity of the current situation, we are writing to request you to take immediate action to save the Vaquita species from extinction. The Vaquita is on the edge of extinction, and unless action is taken now, the species will be lost within a few months or years during your administration. We emphasize that the only remaining hope for the Vaquita is to eliminate all gillnet fishing in the area where the last few Vaquitas remain. So, I mean, it's not an impossible thing, but it's pretty unlikely. And I think, you know, people need to realize that the only way to really protect these marine species is to stop fishing altogether, because of all the bycatch that happens. It's incredibly sad. Like, there is no way to know how, you know, like what species are going to be caught by the net or by the line that people are putting out. It affects everything in there. So the turtles, the dolphins, the whales, everything else that you know people think are cute and smart and you don't want to eat them, they're being killed just the same as any of the fish that people do want to catch and eat. And there is not going to be any way to save these animals by, you know, stopping gillnet fishing. They're going to just get killed by some other kind of fishing method. So it's just ridiculous. Guys, I'm not gonna read out your stuff. Let's see. Okay. Oh man, that's terrible. You guys are crazy. Hi, Aura. Welcome. You should check out Chris Bransieri's channel. He called out Bart K in a recent video. Okay, cool. I don't know who Chris Bransieri is. I will check that out. Thanks. But yeah, this is just really sad. If anybody hasn't seen a Vaquita, I mean, they're just super cute. Like, this is what they look like. And it's just, yeah, it's just really sad. Like, they're really unlikely to survive. They almost look like they're smiling because of the way their coloring is. They're just so cute. Anyway, moving on. Plastic found in marine animals at the ocean's deepest depths. I actually kind of covered this already, so I just wanted to share the link because I talked about this one previously, but I didn't put the link in, so I just wanted to share it with you guys. This was talking about animals that were observed in the Mariana Trench. So they are 7 miles under the sea surface. Even those animals were found to contain microplastics, and yeah, it's basically, you know, just really crazy here. 100% of the shrimp examined contained plastics, while the shrimp from the new Herbedes Trench came out at 50%. You know, just crazy stuff. So research revealed 72% of the shrimp tested contained at least one plastic micro particle, with some containing up to 8 particles. Every trench investigated had marine mammals with plastic inside of them. So it's just really, really sad. They're saying that by 2050 there will be more plastic in the oceans than there are fish. I don't know how they figure that, like if it's by pieces or by weight. I would assume it's by weight because, again, people don't actually count the fish. So I'm assuming that that's by weight. Absolutely crazy. And like they say here, we can do our part by saying no to single-use plastics in our life. But, you know, the point that also should be made is, like, you should also stop fishing, because 46% of the plastic is fishing nets and fishing gear that's discarded. So, crazy stuff. Jeez, Liam. Man, I'm beginning to think you're drunk again. You guys are nuts. I love you, but you're nuts. Okay, saving Saudi Arabia's stunning Red Sea habitats. This was a bit of positive news coming out of Saudi Arabia. Don't think too many positive news comes out of there as far as I see, but they are looking to protect the Red Sea coral reefs. So there's apparently a huge effort being undertaken to make sure that enough habitat is preserved there, and also keeping plastic out and all this kind of stuff. And the article talks about that. So kudos to them. Hopefully more people get engaged with that kind of thing. Certainly a good thing. let's see, Liam says, for my environmental biology class, I made my group do a presentation on animal ag, and the one kid argued that animal ag is institutional racism. I was surprised and was like, damn. Well, that's good. Maybe he saw the Cowspiracy movie or the What the Health, or something like that. It's good to see people being more aware of that. This is a very interesting story. I've covered this before, so I've talked to you guys about how the Trump administration has given the green light on doing seismic testing, looking for more oil and offshore gas and all this kind of stuff, and they want to do basically these like mini explosions that are then used to kind of like analyze the stuff under the seabed, and it's incredibly harmful to all aquatic life, but especially things like the whales and other kinds of things like that use sonar and all that stuff to communicate and to travel and all this kind of stuff. And this guy, Representative Joe Cunningham, kudos to him. If you haven't seen this video, definitely check it out. I actually saw this on Twitter, and I now follow the guy. He had a bunch of really good posts. He went and did a congressional hearing where he blasted an air horn just for like a second. And he had one of the people responsible from the Trump administration specifically, who was trying to get this to go through. He had him, answering questions basically about how loud this actually is. And this part is great. So he says, this is the representative says, it's fair to say seismic airgun blasting is extremely loud and disruptive. Is that correct? The congressman asked. I don't know exactly how loud it is. I never actually experienced it myself, Oliver replied. So Cunningham gave Oliver a taste of the 120 decibel horn. An ear-splitting sound filled the small committee room. An audience of about 50 gasped and murmured. Was that disruptive? Cunningham asked. It was irritating, but I didn't find it too disruptive, Oliver said. It seemed disruptive to at least one person in the room. Subcommittee Chairman Jared Huffman broke into the debate to say an aide who is pregnant informed him that when the air horn sounded, her baby kicked. If anybody knows anything about like decibels and volume, 120 decibels is extremely loud. I don't remember what the pain threshold is, but it might be like 125 decibels or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head. Maybe somebody can check it if you're interested, but this is near the pain threshold. I know that. That's really loud. This is like being at a loud rock concert, at least. And then this is the part that was great. So the guy went on and he said, what if that happened every 10 seconds for days, weeks, and months? He asked Oliver to guess how much louder commercial air guns are than his store-bought air horn. When Oliver didn't bite, he told him the sound from the air gun is 16,000 times louder than that of his air horn. So you have people in the administration who don't know how loud this is, are lying through their teeth, or they're just like stupid. I mean, I don't really understand. I think it's more that they're just lying through their teeth. I don't think they're stupid, and they're trying to play this off as if this won't be disruptive to animals. And I think this also is very telling here. Oliver said right whales are more commonly killed by boat strikes and getting entangled in fishing nets, and that NOAA Fisheries is focused on stopping that. He emphasized that studies have shown some adverse impacts from seismic testing, but that those are sublethal. Sublethal just means it didn't kill the animals. I mean, it's like, would you appreciate that kind of noise being shot into your ear for months on end? I mean, it would probably drive you insane, even if it didn't actually kill you. So kudos to this guy. Watch the video. I definitely recommend it. I'll have the link for this. Please check that out. All right, let's see. Hey, Nikki, welcome. Vegans are turning the frogs back to straight. Alex Jones is terrified. Wow, nice. Congratulations, Nikki. You're teetotal. Cool. So you giving up smoking, but did you mean like booze as well, or just the smoking? But in either way, it's good for your health. So kudos. Later, Liam Jones. Oh man, I don't know what kind of comment I missed, but that's very funny. Thanks, Vohan. So 130. So 130 decibels is the pain threshold, and the air horn is 120. So this guy is just, watch the video if anybody doubts it. This is pretty interesting stuff. Great, Bohan. Thanks for this info. So here he is. This NCBI hearing becomes uncomfortable if the sound pressure level is above 110 decibels, threshold of discomfort, and it becomes painful above 130 decibels, threshold of pain. So yeah, 120 is really loud. And this guy says that didn't, it was not, discomforting. It was, it's like he's just lying through his teeth. Let's see. Nikki, I had to go for a run yesterday. So much energy with no nicotine in me, plus nearly vegan for a year in May. Nice, cool, good. Running is great for you too. That'll help further clear out your lungs once you start hacking up all the tar and stuff. That's good. Yeah, Race, absolutely right. I can torture you in many sublethal ways. You'll be fine. That's what they should do to these people. I mean, honestly, like these people should be subjected to some of the stuff that they're trying to push for, and see how they like it, and then they might change their mind, or at least not be so likely to lie through their teeth. No booze or no smoking. Cool, congratulations. Caffeine and sugar next. Had nettle soup today. Cool. I think there's a lot of health benefits to stinging nettle. My brother and his family, they eat it regularly, almost like in salads. They put it in smoothies and stuff too. I've only eaten it just like raw, just like the fine shoots, like in the springtime. That's for us. Animals might have a more sensitive hearing system. Oh, absolutely, I'm sure. I mean, like dogs have like way more sensitive, and I'm sure the whales are probably even more sensitive than we are. Politics are toxic. Yes, they are. Speaking of politics and being toxic, this is coming from Canada, and this is written by Dr. Pamela Ferguson. I've given her a shout out before, so if anybody's on Twitter, follow her on Twitter. This article is talking about how the dairy farmers of Canada influenced the pamphlets, or whatever, the information guide on the Canadian Nutrition Month. So basically, she's basically saying, like, look, the new food guide was great, but then under this Nutrition Month, there are so many recipes and all this kind of stuff, and it goes to show you how many of these are actually sponsored directly by dairy, and how many contain dairy. So you can see here, as part of Nutrition Month, there are 10 featured recipes. 8 of those 10 recipes include dairy products and the ingredients in the ingredients list. 4 of those recipes were submitted directly by the dairy farmers of Canada, 4 by Avocados from Mexico, and 2 by Canola Eat Well, who are listed as supporting sponsors of the Nutrition Month. Now, she does a great job here of also saying, like, look, I don't think any food processor or food company or industry should be funding these kinds of things, because even like the avocados thing, like she's calling that out, as saying, like, it's not appropriate that somebody who's like sponsoring it, giving them money directly, gets to decide what is going into the guide. And it's not just about calling out the dairy people, it's about calling out the other people too, the canola producers and all this kind of stuff. Like, why should we be telling people to eat like canola oil? People shouldn't be eating oil, period. So I just think it's a good article. It goes through they highlight in this article, she highlights in this article really, kind of upsetting kinds of things about the way the literature is found on the website. You have to basically get redirected to a dairy nutrition site, which tries to make it look like dairy is essential, or tries to make it look like it's healthy. You can see here, dairynutrition.ca is unsurprisingly and unabashedly pro-dairy. Their scientific evidence tab is headed with the statement, "It is well known that milk products are an integral part of a healthy diet." And their facts and fallacies section states that scientific evidence supports the fact that there is no need to be concerned about the health consequences of consuming dairy products. These statements are more propaganda than evidence. Obviously, it's an outright lie. And the fact that they can sponsor something like this, Nutrition Month, then they can dictate what goes in there as part of a healthy recipe, and then they can actually redirect people to their own website. I mean, it's just, how more obvious does it need to be that the industry is just incredibly corrupt and that they can just do whatever they want? It's like absolutely crazy. So check out this article. It's really well written, and follow Dr. Pamela Ferguson if you guys don't already, and if you're on Twitter, or just check her website. It's really great. Let's see what's going on here. Okay. Yeah, Francois, I don't have an external mic. It's just built into the webcam. I will at some point get a mic. I've been extremely busy. Haven't gotten to it. I will try to get one though. Okay, let's see. Erase alert. It's actually the noise from what you can't see below. His adult toy. Man, Raceler, you're so funny. Okay. All right. Great. Moving on. Amsterdam ditches fur for Fashion Week. So great news. I don't really even need to get into it, but basically, yeah, people are doing the right thing, realizing that fur is incredibly cruel, and they are not supporting it. So many, industry leaders in fashion have already gone fur-free or committed to be going fur-free soon. I just think it's a matter of time before all of them follow, and this kind of calls out the decline of fur. So check this out if you guys get a chance, and yeah, great news. All right, now this is a now we're like pretty much done with most of the good news. Now we're getting into the bad news thing here. I put in this article because this was something I've talked about quite a bit before. The lax requirements for fire safety protection in Canadian farms, in U.S. farms, in basically farms all over the world. There are farm fires that kill tons and tons of animals every year. It seems like every couple weeks there's a farm fire that this exact kind of thing happens. This one comes from Iowa, and this happened on March 10th. They say 20 pigs and sheep were killed in the fire, but no one was hurt. And I just, I don't know how in today's day and age somebody can write this with a clear conscience. Like, are they doing it to be a jerk, or are they really this, disconnected from the reality of the situation? Like, they're saying about 20 pigs and sheep died after a barn caught fire, but no one was hurt. And then again, at the end, they say no one was injured in the fire. It's like, man, like, okay, I understand that no people were injured in the fire, but can they at least not just put the word people, or no humans? Like, you could just say people. That's pretty, like, I think acceptable to most people. You could say, like, no people were injured in the fire. Like, but to say, like, no one was hurt, like, that's just totally discounting the fact that these poor animals, like, suffered and died an absolutely horrific death. And, probably from the lax regulation that allows people to keep farms, farmed animals in buildings that are completely unsafe and that go up like a match. And, there's nothing to help put out the fire once it's burning. So it's just crazy. I don't know. Just absolutely nuts. Vegan Zombie, new video confirm Impossible Burger served with dairy cheese, if title is to be believed, as if I'd click anyway to check. Yeah, I wonder if that's just a place where they're serving it, because, I don't know, people do stupid things like that. Francois, California recently banned fur. That's good. People are waking up. Hopefully next time they'll think about animals killed for food. Yep. The whole world should ban fur. Absolutely. When flooding happens, it is actually cheaper and easier to let the animals die if they are insured, and that is absolutely true. And they have been called out for doing that in some of the most recent huge storms that went through and caused flooding. They locked up the barns so that the animals wouldn't have any chance of getting out, and so they would just drown in place, because they also didn't want the PR fiasco of seeing dead pigs and animals floating around in the in the floodwaters. So yeah, the animal industry is smart. They don't want bad press, and that's another reason why they let the animals drown to death in the buildings. It's absolutely crazy, and they get insurance money for it too, probably. The world should just learn how to be on its own, each individual. Yeah. Okay. So this one, I just wanted to mention for a couple reasons. So this is not new news. This happened 8 months ago. Canada joined several other countries in banning the use of animals for testing cosmetics. So you can see here, Norway, India, Israel, and even the entire European Union have banned the use of animals for testing cosmetics, and Canada joined them. This was 8 months ago. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I came across this article very recently. This was actually before the ban was put in place. And the reason I want to mention it to you guys is that they had the largest petition ever collected in Canada to actually encourage the lawmakers to pass the ban. And so they're saying that the nearest petition that gathered this many signatures was from 70 years before. So in 70 years, nobody has come close to collecting this many signatures to actually get anything changed. And you can see here that it said, yeah, the petition contains signatures of 630,000 Canadians from across the country who are calling for an end to cosmetic animal testing. And the largest petition before, it says, was the campaign to create the Canadian Bill of Rights in 1949, which was submitted to then MP John Diefenbaker with 625,000 names attached. So this actually surpassed that. And the reason I wanted to mention this is that, yes, people are waking up to the cruelty in cosmetics, and I can only hope that they, you know, extend it to animal testing in general for other things as well. But before I get there, I just want to talk about something else. And when I was looking at these articles, that I learned something new that I didn't know before. And oh, sorry, I jumped ahead in my mind. Sorry. The reason why I want to talk about the collection of the petitions is that I want to encourage people to actually feel empowered and actually try to go affect change and talk to people and gather you know, signatures for a petition. It's not a lost cause, and it's not a wasted effort. And I recently came across this lady. She lived to be 108 years old, Marjorie Stoneham Douglas, and she almost, I guess, I don't know, kind of like was considered like the single-handed savior of the Florida Everglades. So this lady wrote a book back in, like, I don't know, the 40s, I think it was. Where was it? I don't remember. Oh, 47. So she wrote a book called, like, the Everglades, what was it, River of Grass or something. I forget it exactly. But anyway, she wrote this book and, like, was, you know, like a very, very powerful advocate for preserving the Everglades and fighting you know, land developers that were constantly trying to drain the flooded areas and the swamps and build, like, you know, basically housing developments and all sorts of other kind of like business, you know, development. And you know, she was awesome, and she got a whole bunch of people engaged, and now it's like, you know, the Everglades is protected, and all the, you know, like, land has been made into a park. They're actually restoring some parts that had already been destroyed from before it got designated as a park, and all this kind of stuff. So it's like really cool. She actually died quite a while ago, but the reason why this article was reprinted and why it came up in my feed was that Marjorie Stoneham Douglas High School in Parkland was where 17 people were killed. This was back in February of last year, and this article got reprinted because people were curious who Marjorie Stoneham Douglas was. So this article was written by a journalist who had actually interviewed her shortly before she passed on, and it got reprinted as part of her, like, 108th, or what was it, birthday, I think. Or no, it got reprinted, sorry, it got reprinted after the shooting in memory of her. So I just want to say, like, you know, one person can make a huge difference. 635,000 people can make a really big difference. So, yeah, like, definitely don't give up. Frank Tefano's makeup is all vegan, and he looks fabulous. I don't know if he looks fabulous, and I don't know if his vegan, if his makeup is vegan, but if it's true, then that's probably about the only good thing he's done. There are good things happening, even if it's not always positive. Absolutely are. It's, you know, sometimes you know, people can get discouraged, and a lot of times when I do these live streams, it's kind of something in the back of my mind that, like, I do want to try to balance the stuff that I'm covering. That's like, I don't want to make it all negative, because I don't want people to go away thinking, like, what's the point? Like, we're all just going to hell in a handbasket. Like, you know, I want people to get engaged, and I want people to do stuff. Like, we need to go out and do things. So yeah. Okay. So yeah, Race Lover, your comment is absolutely right. Harming sentient beings or something is unnecessary as cosmetics. For something as unnecessary as cosmetics is quite pathetic. It's absolutely crazy that like it was ever allowed to begin with. I mean, I'm sorry, like just for somebody to get some makeup and then to have to torture an animal for that's absolutely crazy. So this was what I was referring to earlier when I was researching this stuff about the signatures for the Canadian ban on the testing for cosmetics. I was also coming across tweets from people talking about pets and how bad they're treated in general. And I found out about cat decline. I never knew what this actually was. I didn't know what it entailed. So cats will sometimes, like the owners will take them in to get them surgically declawed because they get pissed off that the cat is like scratching at their furniture or their shoes or whatever. And I had always thought that this was something like the equivalent of like they just remove the nail somehow in a way that it never comes back. I only recently learned that what they actually do is remove the first digit of the cat's paw. So all of the fingers get removed at the first digit. It's literally like the equivalent of like if you had your finger and you just had this end, the last digit you have on there, just chop that whole thing off so that your nail is not there. And it's absolutely horrific. I had no idea that that's what it entailed. I can't believe that anybody would do this to their cat and their animal that they think that they love. I mean, it's just shocking. I had no idea that this was like a thing. And then I started like interacting with some people on Twitter about this, and then they let me know about something else called debarking. So debarking is something that people do to dogs. That you don't want your dog to bark. You bring it to a unscrupulous vet who will basically do a surgery and remove some of the vocal cords from the dog so that they're going to be super quiet. It's absolutely horrific. It like boggles my mind that somebody would actually want to get a dog and then mutilate it in a way like this. I mean, it is just mind-boggling. Like I just can't even believe like these things exist. Like I'm 40 years old and like I never even heard of this. I didn't even know this existed. I didn't even know this was a thing. I'm just flabbergasted. Like, I mean, I don't know. People are just absolutely nuts. And as this other article pointed out, this was coming from New Brunswick. They are encouraging vets to vote on banning cat decline, and they actually pointed out that you know, this is actually like even worse than the debarking, and in a lot of places the debarking is already illegal and it's already banned, and a lot of vets will not do it even if it's not illegal in their particular area. But they're saying that this cat decline is just so much worse because it actually, you know, affects the way that the cat is able to move. They're not able to climb stuff. They're not able to, you know, do a lot of basic things like that they're, you know, supposed to be able to do. So it's absolutely crazy. Like, I hope this passes. And just, yeah, if anybody has pets or whatever, like, please, like, let people know about this kind of stuff, because I'd never even heard of this. Like, I mean, I'm not a cat person. I don't have cats. Like, I've never had cats, so it's like, just the thought wouldn't even ever cross my mind to, like, oh, like, I don't like some animal that I keep in my house to be, like, scratching up my couch, so I'm going to chop off his fingers. Like, what the hell is wrong with people? Like, this is just absolutely shocking to me. I can't believe that this is a thing. Okay, Francois, especially that we harmed apes and that is still going on in some countries. Yep. Cat's claws are its main level of defense and protecting itself too. That's right. So you can pretty much never let a cat like that outside because they're not able to do anything. There are also people that cut the ends off dogs' tails for cosmetic reasons. Yep, and also trimming the ears as well too. So that's awful as well. Jen, there are dogs that don't bark. Why not get one of those? Well, I mean, or how about just don't get a dog at all? Like, I mean, these people clearly, you know, care more about their own comfort than they do about the animal. So it's like the wrong thing to do. Get a toy. Get a stuffed toy. Yeah, even before I was vegan, when I heard about the decline, I was instantly opposed to it. Yeah, Race. I mean, I was shocked. I mean, this upset me. Like, I saw this and I was like, oh my god, like, people are insane. Like, this is just really crazy stuff. Nikki, the Spanish government has banned bull torture for the Toro de Vega festival. Okay, well, that's great. I didn't even see that. That is awesome. I actually have a story about bullfighting in a little bit coming up. Dog's ears too. That's right, Jen. Yep. And that's awful too. I can't believe that you know, in today's day and age, knowing what we know about these kinds of things, that you know, breeders are still able to like be a thing, and that, you know, these like dog associations who maintain these breeds, and they like look at all these animals, and you know, to think that it's more aesthetic to like chop off a dog's tail, like, I mean, it's just absolutely insane. Have I heard about pigeon shooting? Yes, I think I covered that actually in one of the previous streams. There were some kids who were like filmed walking around picking up the pigeons who had been shot, and they were still alive, and they were dumping them straight into the trash like while they were still alive. It's absolutely insane. They trapped them in a box and used them for target practice. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. I think I covered it, and if not, maybe I just read about it. Sorry if I didn't show it, but crazy stuff. People are nuts. So I covered that one. Okay. Then speaking of dogs, I just wanted to share this story. This is coming just from a few days ago. This was an expose by a ex-employee from a large sled dog company. I think this is up in Alaska, if I remember. I can't remember, or it might be Washington. Where is this? Oh, this is in Canada. Sorry, it's in Canada. It's in Ontario. So anyway, this person, I'm not going to scroll through the pictures because it's very upsetting, but they documented how hundreds of dogs are being killed and buried in these shallow grave ditches when they're no longer, you know, useful, and they're basically just raising the awareness for people to not go and not use these companies that do these sled dog excursions. They are incredibly cruel. The animals are treated terribly. In the summertime, they're often kept just tied up, you know, in like on a chain, like right near their little kennel. They're suffering from, you know, lack of water, lack of movement. They're basically just, you know, suffering in the heat, and in the winter time they are often basically, you know, like just run to death, and as soon as they can't perform anymore, they're just, you know, thrown in the ditch and killed. So it's a crazy expose. I definitely recommend you guys read it, but I just don't want to really scroll through it now, because if anybody's triggered by those kind of images, I mean, it's very sad. You just see, you know, like dead and dying dogs and stuff. It's awful. But just another thing to avoid, you know, support of this kind of industry. Like, if anybody's, you know, not even vegan, like, just do not support this kind of thing. It leads directly to the cruelty of these poor animals that we consider to be our, you know, family members and friends and stuff. So crazy stuff. Race lover. People are nuts, pal. Most are very disconnected. Some are flat out evil. Very few are sane and good. Yeah, sometimes I do think that. I mean, who's the first person to think of that? You know, like, oh, I'm gonna just chop off the cat's, you know, fingers. I think even the name, just the declawing, it makes people who don't know any better think that it's just like, oh, I'm just trimming my nails, you know, or something like that's what people are. I'm sure it's a conscious thing, you know, like the vets who probably first came up with this named it that because it sounds so innocuous. Like, it's like, oh, it's no big deal. Like, we're just cutting off the nails. And it's like, no, it is a big deal. They're cutting off the fingers. We need to educate people to adopt over than buying from a breeder. Absolutely, Rohan. Yeah, people are crazy. Like, they just don't know how bad these breeder situations are, and how many dogs get killed in general, just because people get them as puppies, and then they don't realize what kind of effort it takes to take care for them, and then they bring them to kill shelter. Race lover, we already come up with adopt, don't shop. We even made it rhyme. That's true. Francois, race, I disagree to an extent. If more people were aware of things like pigeon shooting or cosmetic testing, I think they would be opposed. Well, yeah, I think, you know, we need to do more, but I think a lot of people don't know about it enough, and it definitely needs to get out there. Let alone all the misinformation about being vegan out there and how people need meat to live, etc. Yeah, that's true. Didn't say most were evil. Some are, though. Yeah, definitely. Jen, there was a video about that dog sled story. So horrible how they were neglected. Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know that. I just read the article. Francois, I think most are just normies that don't really think about anything external, just what they have to do with live their lives. Yeah, I think even with the declawing thing, like in the comments that I was reading through on Twitter, there were a lot of people writing who were cat people and they didn't even know. So I think it's definitely not common knowledge. I didn't know about it, and I'm sure many people don't. Okay, cool. Moving on. Ooh, Sorry, I almost knocked my water over. Humane Society, beagles being force-fed pesticides in tests at Michigan lab. So I wanted to move on to animal testing because we already talked about the animal testing for cosmetics, and I want to talk about it for medical. I can't go on enough about this. Like I've already done a video about it, and I've covered it in several other live streams, but like animal testing for medical purposes is completely illogical. It's unethical, just as it is for anything else, and it's actually bad. Like there's an opportunity cost. People can often be led astray by the results. Sometimes you get a false positive or a false negative, and either one could be bad. So if you do a test on an animal and it looks promising, like it might be good, you can then move it to a human, and then in the human trials it's shown that it's actually completely ineffective or worse. Like there might be some horrific side effects, maybe poison, whatever. They are very often not effective. And then the other thing that can be maybe even worse potentially is that it can look like it's not going to work in an animal, but later on it could actually have worked in a person if they had actually just tried it in people. And you might be missing out on some huge opportunities because you're being led astray by the look. It didn't work in an animal, so it's not going to work in a person. So there's a huge opportunity cost. There's the huge ineffectiveness of like how many of these things are done in animals and then proven to be ineffective in people, and it's super costly. There's now computer generated models and all these other kinds of things that can do a better job of predicting the test being effective in people. And yeah, people love animals, they love pets, and they love dogs, but even here, you can see these animals suffering horrifically. They're implanted with devices, they're cut up, they're killed, they're poisoned. I mean, these dogs are suffering like unbelievably, and this is still happening right now to this day, and it's crazy. So there's very disturbing video here and pictures, but I definitely think this is really important to raise awareness, and people just have to understand that like they're being lied to. Everyone assumes that these animal tests are necessary because this is the only way forward. This is the only way to cure some human disease or whatever. And what people don't realize is that most of these are totally ineffective. I covered the story before when there was the congressional kind of review of the veteran affairs testing on the dogs, and they were asked to provide what kind of positive medical developments came out from their testing on dogs, and they said that basically the only thing they could point to was some test that came out positive from the 1960s. So you have to realize, like, in the past 50 years they have continued testing on dogs and haven't provided a single beneficial thing that could be transferred to humans in the past 50x years. And that's what's happening, is people don't realize it, and so they're being lied to, and they're being led to believe that maybe this will be the cure for cancer or whatever, and it's like, no, it's not. You're just torturing the poor animals for no reason whatsoever. Francois, same sort of thing with male circumcision. It's genital mutilation, but people don't want to offend those that do it for religious reasons. Yep, I would agree with that. I've seen lots of science on both sides of the argument, and I would agree that I don't support circumcision for humans either. Vohan, you didn't hear about that? Yeah, I really think like it's huge. I never heard of it, and I never heard of the debarking thing either. I mean, I heard of declawing, but I just didn't know what it was. Nikki, they can find pesticides everywhere, even their mother's wombs. Why do that? Exactly. There is no reason to be doing this kind of testing. David says, maybe you heard, but the dogs used for the animal testing in Sweden, you mentioned the last time, were killed. I did hear about that. It was very sad. Despite animal rights groups trying to help find funding, finding the dogs a home. Yes, I think the reason why they were killed was because they wanted the results, and they had to kill them in order to get the results. So they weren't going to let those dogs go. It wasn't a question of like finding them a home or not having the money to home them or whatever. It was they needed it for the results, and it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's the same arguments. I'm not going to repeat them. It absolutely sucks. Like, people just are so stupid, and they're led into believing that this is somehow going to benefit them, and it's not. It's not going to benefit people, and it's just a horrific industry that takes billions of dollars globally and kills untold animals, and not even, I mean, it's worse than killing them for food, honestly, because their suffering is even more prolonged. Like, I mean, it's just awful. It's really crazy. The stupidity is dug too deep to dig out of this hole without casualties. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I think people just need to be more informed about how ineffective it is. So we'll see. Okay, this one is just absolutely crazy, more along the lines of what people do to animals for, you know, no reason whatsoever. You can't even argue like, oh, this is for health or whatever. It's like people racing horses and dogs and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's just absolutely horrific. This is a big deal in the horse racing circles. So this is the National Hunt Chase. The first day of the festival this year turned into a horrible spectacle. There were 3 horses that had to get killed, and or was it just one? Oh, it may have been just one horse. Sorry, there were 3 injured. I think that's right. That's right. 3 were injured, but they were able to walk off the course, and a 4th one had to be euthanized on the course, and they basically shoot the horses right in the race. It's just absolutely insane. I had actually long time ago kind of read up on, you know, why horses are shot like when they break their legs. The reason they're shot when they break their legs is not because they wouldn't be able to you know, be saved. It's just that it's not economically viable to save them. It's too difficult. It would cost too much money. You would have to have too much kind of support to help the horse basically make a recovery, and they likely wouldn't recover to the point that they could actually race. So instead they just shoot them. It's a travesty that this is even allowed to happen in today's day and age. And people love horses, and they love these races, and they just don't understand the kind of cruelty that they're supporting. It's absolutely crazy. Like the comments in this article, and like how, you know, people are like, oh, you know, like it, you know, they love their horses, and it's such a sad day to see this and whatever. And it's like, yeah, you paid money to go see a stupid spectacle like this, and then, you know, now you're surprised that, you know, some horse got killed. And then some of the racers were actually fined. So the jockeys were fined because they were deemed to be driving their horses when they were clearly, you know, beyond the point of like tired, that it was going to be a danger to the animal. And they said this particular race is actually one of the worst ones out of all of them. They have the worst record, so they have the highest risk of incidents at the festival. And the reason being is that apparently there's too many amateurs in this race. There's like a lot of jumps and a lot of obstacles, and it's really long. It's longer than some of the other races that they have in this festival. So they're basically trying to play a balancing act of like allowing enough amateurs in who are stupid enough to like do these races, but also trying to get enough experienced amateurs that will know not to like push their horses to the point of like killing them, and be more kind of confident and be able to jump better and all this kind of stuff. And it's just really crazy. Yeah, in the end, the panel settled for noting that the race's faller rate was in gradual decline, but it promised to take action should the incident rate increase again, and added amateur participation in its current form at the future festivals will be under material threat should further incidents occur. Amateur jockeys are still a very important part of the fabric of jump racing, and they will surely continue to be races for them at the festival, but whether the National Hunt Chase will be one of is a question that those in authority will now consider. So they're at least considering that they're going to end this stupid race. I kind of feel particularly passionate about this because here in Hungary they also have horse racing, and there was a petition recently, well, it was like I think last year, that I signed, that was trying to get, there's a big kind of like horse race that happens every year here in Budapest, and it's kind of like a tradition, it has been for quite some time. And lots of times horses are injured in that as well. Some have actually been killed. These races happen also in other cities in Hungary, and a lot of times it's amateur racers. Not good experience. The horses are scared. They're running on less than ideal tracks. They often set up the tracks like in the city. So there's like cobblestone, pavement, all this kind of stuff. The horses are skidding. They're not like used to all the noises in the city and all this kind of stuff. It's really, really crazy. And if you follow horse racing, I mean, there's just like so many that are killed in the race directly. It's absolutely crazy. But even aside that, all the horses basically get killed at the end. I mean, just a very few get to live out their lives in pastures after to be you know, sires or whatever. But yeah, it's an awful existence. Like, these poor horses just suffer so badly. It's terrible. Let's see, comments. Bohan, no, I don't. I mean, I didn't know any actual reasons why animal testing was not very informative. Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about the cat thing. Yeah, it's watch my video. I did a video a while back about animal testing, and I covered some actual examples when people were discovering penicillin, and I mentioned a few other examples. So check that one out. I think you'd like that. Bohan, this is the top vegan news show. We have been through so many topics. Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Francois, I would also like to hear more on the topic of animal testing. I didn't know much about it. Yeah, guys, check out my video. I'll put it in the link too if anybody doesn't want to scroll through. But if you just look through my previous videos, you'll see it. I think it's called like animal testing is immoral, ineffective, and unethical, or something like that, or illogical. I think that's what I wrote. Palin, Bohan, you guys should get together and do this together as a vegan team up live stream next time. Cool, yeah. Bohan, if you're up for it, it would be cool. We could like, and then I don't have to talk so much and drink water all the time. No need to break horses' legs and shoot them in the head in order to have an excuse to drink and wear stupid hats. I could wear a stupid hat for you guys if you want. That's fine. The National Hunt Chase, yep, says it all. Oh, yeah, I think that's what you meant, right? Says it all. Yep. Jen, horse and dog racing shows never shows all the animals that don't make the grade and get shot and or dumped in large numbers. Absolutely, they do. It's terrible. Race Lorraine, drink and wear stupid hats without harming horses all the time. Nice. Francois, generally you should see, if you have not already, how hard they try to cover that up. Protesters get arrested by corrupt cops and all sorts of craziness. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Okay, next, you know, thing of like animal abuse for people's entertainment. Matador is seriously injured when a bull tosses him in the air and gores him in the backside at a festival in Valencia. So this idiot got what he deserved, quite frankly, and he did survive, so he didn't die, but he needed a bunch of surgeries. He hurt his knee. He got a huge gash that had to get sewn up in his leg. He's definitely going to be off his you know, best game for a while, so hopefully he won't be able to harm any more bulls for a little bit. But sadly, he's also been injured somewhat seriously before as well, and that didn't even teach him a lesson. So this guy's, you know, carried off, and people are like, oh, you poor thing, and they bring him to the hospital, whatever. This is his model wife. How can somebody be with somebody like this jerk who's torturing and, you know, harming animals for no reason except to, you know, like entertain people? I mean, it just, even way before I was ever a vegan, before I even really ever could say that I, you know, cared much about animals, like I was opposed to bullfighting. I mean, this is just absolute barbaric, like stupid behavior by people. I just can't believe this kind of stuff. So screw this guy. Hopefully he gets his common sense at some point. And then if not, I mean, you know, maybe he'll meet his end this way. Like, I don't know. I don't understand, like, how people can be this stupid. Money, Nikki. Yeah, is that, you mean like that's why the lady's with him? Probably. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, so getting into climate change. Liam, if you're still watching, should be your favorite part. Okay, the a dairy farm, I don't, what is this, Arla Foods, it's a dairy cooperative, has pledged to make its operations carbon neutral from cows to supermarket by 2050, including more than 2,000 farms in the UK. So they're basically saying how they're going to reduce their CO2 in the processing and the transport. They're going to get more efficient, blah, blah, blah. They, of course, don't address anything to do with the actual cows and the methane they produce and all this other kind of stuff. They don't talk about water usage, everything like this. And, you know, this is kind of the key point that I got out of this article, which, you know, typically, as is often, you know, in articles, the main, like, point is buried at the end where people probably don't read it. They basically said, yeah, the company said that it had cut the amount of CO2 emissions from production and packaging by more than 20%. It also said that on farms, the CO2 emissions per kilo of milk had been reduced by almost a quarter over the last 20 years, and it was trialing new technologies for farms, such as producing clean energy from manure. This, just bear in mind, guys, last year's February, I did a video about the environmental impacts of dairy. One of the things that I covered was a study that was actually done by Bovi Diva, Jude Capper, Dr. Jude Capper. She is a dairy industry, funded person, and she did a study showing how modern factory farming dairy is actually far less environmentally impactful than the stuff from the traditional, 50, 60 years ago type dairies. And she actually did show that it has less CO2, methane, etc. produced, and also less water wasted and all this kind of stuff. And the reason for that is basically due to the the economies of scale, getting the cows to produce more milk. They've been bred so much now, they produce more milk per cow than before. There's better production techniques, more of it is able to be saved, etc., etc. So per liter of milk or per kilogram of milk, or however they measure it, they're actually able to produce less. But this is still nothing to be proud about, because they're still committing a huge other array of insults to the environment through the water wastage, the animal feed that gets given to the cows, all the land that's cleared for that, etc., etc. And then this part here. Commenting on the pledge, Joseph Poor of the University of Oxford said it was not clear what emissions would be included in the target. If it's just carbon dioxide, this is a very minimal target, he said. If they are including methane, nitrous oxide, and feed production, which are dairy's main emissions, as well as tackling dairy's other environmental issues, then this is ambitious. Meeting it would set a new benchmark. And that is clearly not what they're going to do. This is a PR stunt, make no doubt about it, I'm sure of it. And here, Will Gildea of the Vegan Society said there was no way to make dairy a climate-friendly product. Cows produce large amounts of methane, a very damaging gas for our planet. Methane emissions pack a huge punch and warm the planet in the near term, meaning they could trigger runaway climate change. I would absolutely agree with that. These people are doing a PR stunt. That's what I'm calling this. Next, this is a really interesting story talking about cognitive biases and how they impact our basically lack of a cohesive effort to fight climate change. And let me read through the comments before I get into this. Some women are only attracted to money. Yeah, apparently. Race Lover says bullfighting is the worst excuse I've ever seen for a man to wear an outfit like that and pretend he's not gay. Stop reading the Daily Fail. Okay, Jen. But come on. I mean, sometimes you gotta read some of this stuff. Okay, February was hilarious, so much cringe. It's true, and I'm glad that most people, I think, nowadays are actually seeing it as a vegan initiative. Like, we have completely taken it over from the dairy industry. I don't think they have any kind of chance at, putting themselves in a good light. I mean, let's face it, they're taking away babies from moms. Like, you can't ever make that business look good. Arla, the biggest dairy company in Sweden, they released a new beverage, oat and cow's milk. Yep, they're compromising. Pure oat milk would mean they let the vegans win. What, they're combining it in one bottle? Like it's a blend of oat milk and cow milk? Oh my god, Dave, what the hell's wrong with those people? That's gonna fail. I mean, like, people who drink dairy, they're not gonna want to combine it with oat milk. Like, why would they do that? Like, so they're not going to get any market for that. The people who want dairy milk are going to be like, what the hell, like, screw you. And the vegans are going to be like, what the hell, screw you. Like, that's just absolutely stupid. Anyway, so as you guys know, if you've been watching for a while, I'm a big fan of reading books. And one of the books that I've talked about in passing, sort of in a few other videos, has been The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb. And in that book, he talks actually a lot about different cognitive biases that people have and some of the problems that it can cause, like when you're trying to calculate, probabilities of things happening, or especially of extreme situations happening. And a lot of times we underestimate, what are those things that we should actually be worried about, because we worry about things that are incredibly unlikely to happen. So this article talks about various different cognitive biases we have, and talks from an evolutionary standpoint of how some of those may have developed and why. And they're talking about how the here and now is kind of like one of the biases where, you know, if you're being chased by a mountain lion or whatever, like your immediate thing is like, I got to get away from the mountain lion. Like, I'm not worried about what I'm going to do tomorrow or next year, or the, you know, 10 years down there, or 100 years from now. I only care about the here and now. That's one of them. They go through a whole bunch of stuff, and it's very, very interesting. So they, you know, I'm just going to go through a couple of these, but I definitely encourage everybody to read this and just kind of take this, you know, in, because a lot of this is really interesting, and they're talking about like actual stuff that's been, you know, assessed by psychologists and all these kind of like people about how people learn and what we react and all this kind of stuff. It's very interesting. Hyperbolic discounting. This is our perception that the present is more important than the future. So this is the one that I just explained. Our lack of concern for future generations. Evolutionary theory suggests that we care most. We care most about just a few generations of family members, our great-grandparents to great-grandchildren. While we may understand what needs to be done to address climate change, it's hard for us to see how the sacrifices required for generations existing beyond this short time span are worth it. There's the bystander effect. This is basically like, you know, somebody else will fix it, somebody else will cure it, so I'll just stay over here and not do anything. The sunk cost fallacy. We are biased towards staying the course even in the face of negative outcomes. The more we've invested time, energy, or resources into that course, the more likely we are to stick with it, even if it no longer seems optimal. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff. They're talking about, you know, some things that are actually positive about our cognitive biases, things that we can actually turn around and use to, you know, encourage people through social media, through our own communities, starting small, start your own family, your neighborhood, whatever. This is, you know, really good information. I definitely encourage everybody to check this out. And I've talked sometimes in some of my gardening videos about a guy called Brad Lancaster. If anybody isn't familiar with him, check out Brad Lancaster. The guy's like an absolute like hero in my book. Like, that guy is like one of these people who takes like rainwater harvesting in the desert and has helped like revitalize his entire community. He like has this like tiny little house that he kind of built out of a garage for himself, and he collects his own rainwater. He does like humanure composting. He grows his own food. He's actually planted a whole bunch of trees. They like basically regreened their entire neighborhood. His neighborhood was dying out. It was like drug-ridden, crime-ridden, all this kind of stuff. He started slowly but surely like getting all his neighbors on board. They do like community plantings, all this kind of stuff. And that's the kind of thing that I think really is going to be the thing to save us. Liam, if you're watching, I know, you know, your view on the whole climate change thing is you don't want it to be government mandated. I had some comments on my video that I did on the live stream from Thaddeus as well, basically, you know, saying like industry is gonna, you know, basically save us from climate change. I really don't think so. I think industry is only interested in making themselves money. I don't think governments are going to save us because they're basically owned and run by the industry. And I really think like that's what's going to save us, if anything is going to save us, is the small community type activism. But anyway, that's enough of my preaching. I'm moving on to the next article. Check this out if you guys get a chance. It's very interesting reading, and especially if anybody's interested in like human psychology. I think this is really cool stuff. Francois, reminds me of when James Inhofe brought a snowball to a Senate meeting to declare climate change is a myth. I'm not even aware of that. I'll have to look into that. That sounds crazy. It's like, that's sound reasoning, right? This next one I'm not going to get into too much. It's just another study here by the National Geographic. They're talking about, well, sorry, I don't think it was their study, but the articles from National Geographic. They did a new scientific analysis. They used like millions of possible outcomes looking at climate change, and they're basically, you know, saying it is dire. And you can see here, out of the 5.2 million possible climate futures, carbon emissions must reach zero by 2030 in every country of the world. We are to stay at less than 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 2 degrees Celsius by 2100 of warming, the target set by the United Nations to avoid the worst impacts. And they're basically saying like none of the you know, possible outcomes is looking good right now. And this you know, particular report is saying that our only chance is to go to you know, engineering technologies like direct air capture or biomass energy with carbon capture and sequestration. Or they're also talking about the solar engineering, or geoengineering as it's called. So they're going to basically fly airplanes high into the atmosphere and spray out sulfur dioxide, and that is going to basically mimic the gas from volcanoes and reflect the sun's heat, and that will save us. Now, I've already talked about this in a previous stream. Like, I don't think this is going to save us. I think it's a horrible idea. I think these people have no freaking clue, like, what other kind of impacts this may have. And I dread the idea that people are going to look at these kinds of things and say, well, let's just stay the course. We'll solve it with science. We'll solve it with industry. Thaddeus in his comment said, we're going to solve climate change with Tesla and veganism. I don't think that's the case. I don't think spraying the air with sulfur, whatever the heck it is, sulfur dioxide, is going to save anything. Maybe we'll get more acid rain. I don't know. I just can't understand how people can be this gullible to think that that this is going to be what we're going to have to resort to. So they're saying the paper's conclusion: solar geoengineering could potentially have global temperature increases without making climate change worse. Still, big uncertainties remain about solar geoengineering, and much more research is needed to understand its risks, costs, and limitations before deployment, acknowledges co-author David Keith of Harvard University. At least they acknowledge that. He also warns we still need to rapidly cut carbon emissions. I'm very nervous about the unintended consequences of this, says Michael Mann, a climatologist and director of the Earth System Science Center at Penn State. Highly idealized experiments on solar geoengineering may not accurately reflect what might actually be used, nor the real-world impacts, Mann said in an email. That's my take as well. Okay. Last one on climate change, and then I'll move on to another topic. I actually got this article linked in as a reply to somebody's post that I was reading on Twitter, where they were a climate change denier, and they basically said, like, look, the previous predictions would have already shown that Manhattan would be underwater by now, and it's not. So clearly these people are lying, and blah blah blah. And somebody put this in as a link as a response. I've read this article. It's pretty awesome. I would definitely recommend everybody check this out. So this, for anybody who doesn't know, last video I did about the climate change, specifically that live stream, I talked about this guy, Dr. James Hansen. He's the director of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, and how he testified in 1989 before a Senate committee about global warming and about the models that they ran and about all this kind of stuff. And those were some of the predictions that have eerily come true. And the climate change denier that I am referring to was basically saying, like, this guy's full of it, and none of his stuff was right. So here is the main point of the situation. This guy came up with different scenarios. So he came up with 3 scenarios. His scenario A was to draconian cut emissions. Oh wait, sorry. Hold on. Oh, sorry. Ranging from business as usual, which is like don't do anything, heavy pollution in his scenario A. So that's like everything goes as it has and nothing changes, to draconian cuts in scenario C, and with scenario B being in between. Changes in human effects that influence Earth's global energy imbalance have in reality been closest to Hansen's scenario B. And the reason why they're saying is that not because of the reduction in fossil fuel burning, but because of the phasing out of chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs. And because of that, his Model B projections were the closest to what is actually happening right now. But what these climate change denier people will do is they will use this guy's scenario A, and because it hasn't gotten as bad as what the scenario A predicted, because they're conveniently ignoring the fact that the CFCs were taken out and that the scenario B is actually the more relevant one, they've ignored scenario B and C, and they're just calling this guy a liar or that he's wrong. And when you actually look at the scenario B, he's pretty much spot on. So this is the adjusted scenario B, and then this is the temperature. And you can see that he's pretty damn close, like in his projection. You can see here the model projected under scenario B, global surface air temperatures would warm about 0.84 Celsius between 1988 and 2017, but with a global energy imbalance to 30% lower, it would have predicted a global surface warming closer to 0.6 to 0.7 degrees Celsius by this year. The actual change from those years was about 0.6. So he's pretty much spot on. And this person is actually talking. Whoever wrote this article, I didn't even get the name actually. I don't know who wrote this. Dana Nusatali. They're calling out the Cato Institute, which is funded by the Koch Industries. So if anybody doesn't know about the Koch Industries, definitely research that. You'll find more, industry corruption and evil people doing evil things for money. But anyway, they fund the Cato Institute. And way back in 1998, the Cato Institute's Patrick Michaels, who has admitted that something like 40% of his salary comes from the fossil fuel industry, arguably committed perjury in testimony to Congress. Invited by Republicans to testify as the Kyoto Protocol climate agreement was in the works, Michaels was asked to evaluate how Hansen's predictions were faring 10 years later. In his presentation, Michaels deleted Hansen's scenarios B and C, the ones closest to reality, and only showed scenario A to make it seem as though Hansen had drastically over-predicted global warming. Deleting inconvenient data in order to fool his audience to become became a habit for Patrick Michaels, who quickly earned a reputation of dishonesty in the climate science world, but has nevertheless remained a favorite of oil industry and conservative media. So they're talking about just last week in the Wall Street Journal, Michaels was joined by Ryan Mao in an op-ed that again grossly distorted Hansen's 1988 paper. Mao is a young scientist with a contrarian streak who's published some serious research on hurricanes, but since joining the Cato Institute last year, seems to have sold off his remaining credibility to the fossil fuel industry. In their Wall Street Journal opinion piece, Michaels and Mao claimed global surface temperatures has not increased significantly since 2000, discounting the larger than usual El Nino of 2015 to 16. Assessed by Mr. Hansen's model, surface temperatures are behaving as if we had capped 18 years ago the carbon dioxide emissions responsible for the enhanced greenhouse effect. They provided no evidence to support this claim. Evidence, in fact, seemed not to be allowed on the Wall Street Journal opinion page, and it takes just 30 seconds to fact check. In reality, global surface temperatures have increased by about 0.35 centigrade since 2000, precisely in line with Hansen's 1988 model projections as shown above. And it's unscientific to simply discount the El Nino of 2015 to 2016 because between the years 1999 and 2014, 7 were cooled by La Nina events, while just 4 experienced an El Nino warning. Yet despite the preponderance of La Nina events, global surface temperatures still warmed 0.15 Celsius during that time. There's simply not an ounce of truth to Michaels and Mao's central Wall Street Journal claims. So, this is a great tweet by somebody. I don't know who this is. Dumbest sentence in the Wall Street Journal op-ed. Global surface temperatures has not increased, blah, blah, blah. Translation, temperature has not increased if you omit the data showing it has increased. So this article is actually really good. I definitely recommend people read through this. Anybody who's like thinking that global, climate change isn't a thing or isn't happening, you need to look at this stuff. Like, people are making these claims for industry, and this article, you can see it. You can see their financial interests laid bare. It's very obvious what is happening. So right here, why lie? To keep cashing Koch paychecks. So the Koch brothers or Koch brothers, whatever they are, they pay $30 million a year to the Cato Institute. As Michaels admitted, they're basically fossil fuel industry employees. But the answers to the questions are simple. As climate scientists have predicted for decades, global temperatures are rising dangerously rapidly. Moreover, research has shown that economic benefits of cutting carbon pollution far outweigh the cost. Michaels and Mao want us to bet the future of all life on Earth. They want us to put all our chips on black, a bet that burning billions of barrels of oil and billions of tons of coal every year won't cause dangerous climate change. They want to make that bet even though their arguments are based on unsupported lies whilst they cash their checks from the Koch brothers. We would have to be incredible suckers to take their bet. I would absolutely agree with this. I definitely encourage people to read through all the links. I have not read through all of the links that they are referencing in this article, but I will be taking some closer look at this. It's very interesting stuff and very much fits the narrative that climate change deniers want to do, which is basically, it's unscientific. They are literally dumping out the data that they don't like. All right. Let's see. Hi, Angry Vegan. Thanks for joining. Francois, yeah, you're right. 4 out of 5 doctors enjoy Virginia Slims. It's the same exact stuff, man, all over again. Vohan, when I was in the Netherlands, there was a protest or walk for a very green politician that is picking up a lot of popularity there. There were signs saying "Go Vegan" among the thousands of people there. That is awesome. Good to see. Yeah, I think like people are bringing these, you know, things to the forefront. I already talked about last time about Cory Booker, or what's his name? I think it's Cory Booker, guy in the U.S. He's a vegan as well, and he's going to be running for president in 2020. So I mean, there's definitely, you know, some people like hip to this, and hopefully it'll get better. Jen, Netherlands is pretty advanced. Also, Party for the Animals has representative in Parliament. That is so cool. I would definitely vote for any Party for the Animals. This I just wanted to share with you guys. I'm not really going to read through it. I just thought it was kind of an interesting, again, kind of an opinion piece. But here, just, you know, just a quick summary here. Re-inhabiting planet Earth. They're making a case basically for, you know, trying to make people be less arrogant and less thinking that they know how to fix everything. So here is what they say: what may be history's ultimate moment of human arrogance, the belief in a sense of separatedness from and superiority to nature, so thorough that we have with our monstrous intelligence the ability and therefore the right to play bad God and make the whole planet go poof. They talk about, you know, the atomic bomb. They talk about kind of the environmental destruction. I don't even think the person who wrote this is necessarily a vegan, but they're just talking about kind of taking a better look at, you know, what we are doing to the earth, and talking about how, you know, indigenous people viewed it in a different way. So like one thing that if anybody knows, you know, I'm really into gardening obviously, and like growing your own food and stuff, but in permaculture you always say there's no problems, there's just, you know, solutions that haven't been worked out yet, or you can use nature to kind of achieve your goals as well, but don't fight it. And this was something that caught my eye here in the article. Where was it? Here. Rupert Ross, in his book Returning to the Teachings, points out, for instance, the Lakota had no language for insulting or other orders of existence. Past waste weed. I love that. So just this idea that, you know, we look at certain plants, we look at certain animals, and we think of them as a nuisance. We don't think of them as just something that exists in its own right and it's for its own purpose. Like, we just think of, like, if it doesn't help me, if it doesn't, you know, give me something that I want, we just think it's waste. Like, I just want to get rid of it. It's a weed. It's a pest. I kill it. I shoot it. I burn it. You know, I poison it. Like, so this is just an interesting thing, and I think it's an interesting read. If anybody's interested, I'll have the link for this as well. But yeah, a lot of times I think the indigenous people did have things figured out, and even if they weren't vegan, or not even close to vegan, they still obviously had a much more connected, you know, kind of, you know, lifestyle to the earth than what people are doing now. This one is kind of a crazy story. This guy was, I guess, arrested. I don't know if he got jailed. Maybe he's gonna get actual time. Oh yeah, he's only sentenced to a 12-week curfew. But basically, this guy had a seagull try to take some chips out of his hand. So chips, for the people in the U.S., that's British for potato, sorry, fries, you know. And he got pissed off and he grabbed the poor seagull and he killed it by smashing it into the ground or into a wall or something. And several people saw it, including some children, and they were, you know, shocked by this and whatever. It's just this awful, crazy, you know, thing. And yes, before anybody comments, it's the Metro. It's almost as bad as the Daily Fail. But yeah, I just wanted to share this for one reason alone, is that you know, what he did was absolutely abhorrent. I am in no way, shape, or form, you know, condoning him. But what I want to say is that the life that you know, poor farmed animals like chickens and turkeys, what they experience can be argued is every bit, at least as bad or worse, and I would say worse, because they live their whole lives suffering, confined, never seeing the sun. At least this seagull got to live its life to that point, you know, happy as can be, I guess, or, you know, close enough to it, or certainly more so than a chicken. But people who read this and they think this guy's a sick psycho, what would they think when they see the abuses that go on in farms? And do they feel that same compassion for the chicken as for this poor seagull? And I would just hope that they do, but I kind of don't think they would. And that's why I'm bringing it up. Nikki, with gardening, I find nature throws up all the medicinal plants like clevers in spring. Hence, nettle soup today collected dry and freeze. Nice. Yeah, there's tons of cool stuff. I mean, there's like lots of things that that are considered weeds that are actually edible. I've done some videos early on in my channel where I showed some in my garden, and I haven't come really even close to learning as much as I would like to learn about that. I want to learn more about foraging, but it's just yeah, my life has been kind of crazy in the past year, and I haven't really been able to learn more stuff. But that is something that I'm interested in long term, is to learn more about all the stuff that just grows wild and can be really useful for all sorts of things. You know, sometimes medicinal, but sometimes just for fun, for eating. There's lots of stuff that people just look at as weeds and actually try to get rid of in their lawn. Even just something as simple as the dandelion that can actually be eaten, and it's quite useful and medicinal as well. So, you know, like I say about the chickens, this guy is a French rapper, Stomy Bugsy. I don't know him. I don't listen to much rap. Some of you guys may know him. He went with DXE into a factory farm in France, and they documented the abuse of the animals there. And kudos to this guy. He basically, you know, said that he was expecting it to be bad. Here's the quote: "I was expecting something pretty bad, but this is hell." He says, "I wasn't expecting this. Where do all these eggs end up? They go into these kinds of cookies that we give to our children or that we buy for ourselves. Have you seen this business? Is this a business? Is it a farm? No, it's a hell. Look how overcrowded and stressed the chickens are. They never see the light of day. They never see grass or dirt. They live in their own excrement. They are diseased. What is this? It has to stop. Open your eyes. This is hell. It's really hellish. I wasn't expecting this." I mean, you guys repeating himself. He's probably in shock, you know, like literally in shock. It's no wonder that people who work in these kind of conditions actually develop post-traumatic stress disorders and all this kind of stuff. I mean, you cannot see this kind of cruelty and suffering and not shut down mentally in order to protect yourself. Like, you would go insane, and that's what these people do, and they go into shock, or they, you know, do even something worse, which is that they act out their frustrations in the form of aggression towards animals or other people, and it's absolutely terrible. Like, you know, this guy here is no worse than you know, somebody working on a farm committing these atrocious things. I condemn them equally. You know, this guy is no worse. Yeah. Anyway, that's why I wanted to share it with you guys. And then, you know, for anybody who's watching and you think, like, if you're not vegan and you think, well, I get my eggs ethically sourced and they're cage free and all this kind of stuff, here's a handy thing that I just came across recently. This was very recent figures from Canada, 2017. They had 1,059 registered egg farms in Canada. They go into how much money it generates, all this kind of stuff. And here's what I wanted to focus on. Where was it? There were two things I wanted to show you guys, actually. Ah, shoot, I can't see the first thing I wanted to mention, but I found another one. So this was one of the things that I wanted to mention, was that the average Canadian flock size, oh, this is it, yeah, here it is. Sorry. Okay, so the average Canadian flock size was 23,225 hens. That's the average farm has that many hens on it at one time. Canadian egg farms can range from a few hundred to more than 400,000 hens. So you can imagine that if the average is 23,000 and the largest is more than 400,000, you know, all these people who are claiming, like, oh, I only get mine from, like, the small farm and the whatever, like, think of how many of these, you know, eggs being produced in total are coming from the small farms. Like, yeah, there are a few that have only a few hundred chickens, but the average size is 23,000. The majority, the vast majority of what people are buying is coming from these factory farms conditions. And these kinds of figures, I don't have them for every country. But if you actually go look up the figures for your own country, where you're viewing from, they're going to be very similar. You know, I've seen estimates from the US, from the UK, from places in the EU. You know, most of like what people are eating comes from factory farmed animals. Like 90 whatever, you know, 90+% of what people are eating is coming from factory farmed animals. And these animals are being kept in absolutely horrific conditions. They really are hellish. And yeah, it's crazy. And then this was the second thing. This was the only other thing I want to point out here. The average laying hen produces about 340 eggs per year. So that's literally almost an egg every day. And you know, people often, you know, say this, like vegans will say, like the original kind of like chickens that were most likely the, you know, the original kind of chicken that got domesticated and then bred to produce more and more eggs. They lay anywhere from like 10 to 15 eggs a year, like in the wild. So we bred these poor animals to go from say 10 to 15 a year up to 340 per year. And you know, I had some comments on Twitter. Somebody said like, yeah, imagine it, you know, as a woman, because it was a girl that wrote this. The lady said, you know, imagine like if as a human, female, if you had your period every single day of the year. Like imagine 340 days of the 365 days a year that you would have, you know, a menstrual cycle. Like imagine the pain, imagine the suffering that you would feel. Imagine these birds, imagine what they go through. And then if that weren't enough, you know, even these birds that have been genetically bred to produce this many eggs, even those birds, if taken out of these conditions, they would still produce less eggs than this, because the reason why they get so many eggs is that they trick them with lighting. So a lot of these farms, they use lighting to actually mess them up from their natural biorhythms. They actually have things like molting, which they literally starve them, and that actually kind of kicks in the body to produce more eggs because they feel like they're gonna die. They're in starvation mode, and before they kind of like die, they still want to be able to like reproduce. So a lot of times when the chickens are getting kind of close to spent, they'll literally starve them so that they molt. That's when they lose all their feathers and all this kind of stuff. So it's just absolutely insane, like the kinds of things people can think of. And this is actually one of the things that made me go vegan, is the egg industry specifically. When I saw the videos of the baby chicks getting ground up in those machines, in the macerators, that was what triggered it in my mind, that it's like, this is not just, you know, one person who's abusive. This is not some guy who flips out at the bird taking away his French fries and then he's going to smash it to death on the, you know, on the wall. This is a systematic process that engineers sat down. Somebody told them, like, you know, this is, I need a thing that grinds up babies alive. Oh, okay. Well, you know, how big are these babies? Oh, they're this big. You know, like how many are going in at the same time? Oh, it's this many per the line, you know, per minute or whatever. It's like, okay, well, we're gonna need this much horsepower, this much whatever. You know, these are what the blades are gonna look like. How small do you want the pieces? You know, and it's like, you know, somebody designed it, somebody planned it, somebody approved it, somebody paid for it, somebody built it, somebody maintains it. In a, you know, it's systemic, and it's not just a, you know, one person doing this abuse. It is just inherently, the whole system is like this. And that's what actually made me realize, like, yeah, like this is not just, you know, because these PETA videos where they show you the one guy kicking the baby in the head, you know, the baby calf or the pig or whatever, like you can just kind of, in my mind, like I always explained that away. I cleared my conscience by saying, well, it's just one guy and he was caught in the tape and he got a fine, so he's, you know, it's fine. And it's like, no, it's not fine. This is why it's not fine. Hi, Kathy. Welcome. Nikki, most obvious ones are nettles, dandelions, and clovers. That sticky weed. It cleans the blood and lymphatic systems. Yep, cool. Yeah, you would go mad if you saw that man in the pigeon. I mean, it's awful, but like, again, you know, it's no different than the people working on these farms, unfortunately. Okay, cool. Same with me. Seeing the baby chicks being ground up was a big factor of me going vegan. Yeah, cool. It's good, Kathy. I mean, I think, like, you know, people need to see this stuff. They need to wake up. and everybody in the industry is working really hard to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't get out there. You know, I talked about this before with the ag-gag laws in the U.S. Other countries have similar kind of measures in place. You know, the industry does not want people to know about this stuff. It's crazy. All right, this one here is kind of a bit of good news, actually. So there was a pig slaughterhouse that was forced to close recently. So this is in the UK, in East Sussex. And they were saying that they closed for a couple of reasons. One is, you know, the vegan activists who had kind of like regularly gone to do vigils there. But they said that was not the main factor. The main factor was actually falling demand. They were processing fewer and fewer pigs, and it became economically unviable. So here it is. We used to do more than 150 pigs a week, but at this last week it was only 58. It is not financially viable. So again, you know, these guys aren't closing it down because they had a change of heart. They're not doing it because they love pigs, that they suddenly realize like, oh, they're just like dogs and we're killing them. No, they're realizing like, wow, I can't make money. I'm going to stop doing it. They're closing it down. And of course, you know, all of the farmers nearby are saying like, well, this is going to be a problem because they don't know where they're going to send their pigs to be killed. And where was this? Here it is. I would say it is right that it is not just the protesters. It is a complicated issue, but farmers are very nervous about losing vital infrastructure. They have a great deal of trouble for years from protesters, and people see this as a consequence of the intimidation. I love it. You know, they're worried about the farmers being intimidated by the vegans. It's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, so you know, he's saying that local farmers had nowhere to go and that it would be very hard to start a new abattoir in the southeast. Yeah, hopefully they don't, and they realize, the farmers too, that like they're on a dying business. You should not be doing this. Go do something else. Yeah, and you know, it was basically insane. Like at this farm where they were killing these pigs, because I guess it's a farm as well as a abattoir. So the person, yeah, what was it? Sussex Animal Save sent images to Totally Vegan Buzz from the farm showing a pig covered in blood inside a van after a visit on January 21. Spokesman said, "Meet your organic bacon. We were appalled with what we had saw. The pig looked anxious and distressed. We told the owner of Tottingworth Farm about the condition of the pig, and they said the pig was probably fighting or playing." I'm pretty sure a blood-covered pig is not playing, and you can definitely see fear in its eyes. The spokesman claimed the group said, asked if they could call out a vet, but the owner did not listen and insisted the pig went to slaughter. So this pig was ultimately killed. It's very sad. But again, you know, it's supply and demand. If people stop buying less, you know, animals, the farmers at some point are going to realize, like, wow, I can't sell these. The slaughterhouses are going to realize, I'm not making enough money. I can't keep the lines open. You know, I can't pay people to work on these lines if we're not killing enough animals. And all of these kind of like have an impact, you know, a knock-on effect. This slaughterhouse closing is a huge win because now these local farmers that are near it and that had been using it, they're going to either be forced to go to a farther one, or they're going to be forced to try to open a new one. They're probably going to face staunch resistance from the local vegan community and, you know, local objections. Who the hell wants to be near a slaughterhouse and listening to that and seeing it and smelling it? Nobody. And so, you know, this is great news because they're going to be forced. And even if it means nothing but the fact that they have to drive their animals farther away to get them killed and paid, that's going to cut into their costs because they have to drive farther. So all of this stuff has like a knock-on effect, and hopefully it makes them be like, yeah, this is not economically viable for me either. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to grow potatoes, oats, barley, whatever. I don't know. Do something else. So, yeah. Okay, what are you guys saying? Cool. Falling demand, that's right. Francois, unfortunately, we also mistreat people that have committed crimes, I think is what you meant. A lot of the people working in these factory farms can't work elsewhere because of the criminal charge. Many are on parole. Yeah, and they are being exploited by the industry as well. So they are definitely, you know, exploiting the poor people. Like in the U.S. as well, a lot of these are illegal immigrants. They're undocumented workers. I've covered this in previous streams. It's a huge scam. Like, it's awful. Prisoners are often made to work in these farms. There's a great account that I follow on Twitter. I'll share it with you guys next time. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I think it's something like, you know, Prisoner Justice Reform or something like that. They are actually advocating for a prison farm that it should be vegan and that it shouldn't be exploiting animals. And they were fighting one of the prisons in particular where they were being forced to run goats on the farm. So the prisoners were actually the ones, you know, milking the goats and ultimately killing them and all this kind of stuff. And they said that it's incredibly unethical to force a prisoner who maybe actually has a violent past and all this kind of stuff to be doing this and harming and exploiting animals. Like, it's just sick and twisted. Like, how can you think that you're going to actually reform that person by having them commit, you know, horrible acts of violence upon helpless animals, like in prison, you know, ultimately for profit? It's a huge industry. It's terrible. Yeah, I do feel bad for that pig. I mean, you can really see it in its eyes that it knows what's coming. I mean, these animals are not stupid. They are really, really smart. They know what's coming. Yeah, Angry Vegan, you're right too. I mean, these industries are subsidized. They're subsidized by the prison industry as well. The government makes huge money off of jailing people. That's why they have these jail sentences and jail times for petty offenses, like, you know, getting arrested with marijuana and stuff like that. It's a huge industry. Generally, grow blueberries. They're expensive as hell. Yep, absolutely. That's a good thing. Petition calls to spare death sentence pigs saved from horror farm. If anybody has any time, please sign this petition. You can find the link here at the bottom. This was an investigation recently. I think it was, I don't know if it was like a few months ago. I'm pretty sure I covered this in a stream. But anyway, they found this farm where, yeah, here it is, Bramble Hall Farm in Pembroke Dock in January. And I'm pretty sure I covered this. They found animals that were cannibalizing each other. They were starving to death, all this kind of stuff. And what they did was they removed all these animals. So you can see here 53 pigs, 80 sheep, 3 goats, 58 dogs, 20 horses. They were breeding dogs as well, and 1 donkey. And what they are basically saying is that they're going to kill the 53 pigs because they're not fit for human consumption anymore, because they've resorted to cannibalism, and it can't be known whether or not they're safe to eat, because they've been eating like dead and rotting flesh of other animals. So they're going to kill all these animals. And the petition is basically trying to convince you know, the legal system to allow them to be sent to a sanctuary instead. So it's like, yeah, don't kill them. Let them go to a sanctuary, and people are actually, you know, happy to, you know, to support the sanctuary and let them live out their lives. I mean, these poor animals have suffered enough. So if anybody has the time, please go sign this petition as well. And let's see if we can, you know, help them out. This one is a health related news item that I want to show you guys, and unfortunately I can't show you the whole story here because you have to log in. It's on the Wall Street Journal, but I came across this from Dr. Joel Kahn, or whatever his name is, the vegan doctor who was on Joe Rogan a while back, and he shared it. And I actually kind of want to point out something that you know, I've talked a lot about cholesterol in previous videos. I did the whole live stream on cholesterol, and I've done videos about the health aspects and talk about cholesterol in detail in some of those videos. But I just want to stress it again in case anybody hasn't seen any of those videos or doesn't follow like Dr. Greger on nutritionfacts.org or whatever, about how research studies often basically trick people or try to get them to not realize that eating saturated fat and cholesterol, that those dietary sources actually increase your blood serum cholesterol levels. And the fact that there are studies that are still being done to this day trying to assess whether or not it has an impact, it just goes to show you the kind of idiocy of it all. The industry will constantly fund these studies to come about to try and show no correlation between dietary consumption and blood serum cholesterol levels. And the reason being is that for the past 60-70 years, we've already known that there is no way to show correlation in an observational study. So what that means is, like, you have two people eating the same amount of saturated fat and cholesterol. They could have wildly different cholesterol, blood serum cholesterol levels, and the reason being is just genetic differences or other kinds of things that can confound. So the confounding factors can actually mess it up. So it's impossible to show statistically significant correlation between saturated fat and cholesterol consumption and blood serum cholesterol levels. And people will constantly keep making these correlation studies to try and show, like, oh, there is a connection, or no, there isn't a connection. But we've known for 60-70 years now that there is no way to show this in a statistically significant manner. But this article got shared by Dr. Khan, and I'm a little bit frustrated because it came out with a kind of vegan-friendly outcome where they did show that there was a statistically significant link between higher cholesterol and risk of heart disease, and it was actually pretty significant. So they found that right here, eating 300 milligrams of dietary cholesterol a day or less than that of 2 egg yolks was associated with a 17% higher risk of cardiovascular disease. So the outcome of the study was actually favorable for his message, and that's why he was sharing it, I'm sure. But I actually get annoyed because we shouldn't even be, like, we should just be throwing this study out altogether, because it's a correlation, it's an observation study. It's an observation study, and it's really stupid. Like, people shouldn't be doing these kind of studies to try and determine these kinds of things anymore. And it's really funny because in the comments there were immediately the typical carnivore crowd jumping in and being like, screw you, Dr. Khan, because, like, you're just showing this thing and correlation doesn't equal causation and whatever. And it's like and they're also saying that it's an observational study, so you don't really know what's the mechanism and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just frustrating that, like, people don't know this stuff, and just because this one in particular came out kind of showing, like, yeah, don't eat eggs, they're bad for you, he shared it. But, like, I think he should have caught that off at the pass, cut it off at the pass, that, like, he knew people were going to react that way to it, or at least some people would. And even at the end of the story, they basically tell you, like look, it's completely fine to eat eggs, like, this doesn't prove anything, and don't worry about it, just do it in moderation, and whatever. And it was so funny, people were replying like, who eats 3 eggs a day anyway, and blah blah blah. And I used to eat eggs regularly. I used to eat 2 to 3 eggs every single day. That was my standard breakfast. I used to eat eggs for breakfast every single day. Like, pretty much 5-6 days a week, I would be eating a 2 or 3 egg omelet, sometimes more. And that doesn't even include the eggs that I was eating in other things, like, baked goods or other kinds of stuff. So, yeah, people are just nuts. I don't know. And the fact that, this is still, like, a thing just really infuriates me. You guys are funny about the blueberries. This thing, old man's game. This British guy, Malcolm King, he's some ridiculously wealthy person. He's retired. He's an elite hunter. He goes around the world and kills big game. And in trophy hunting circles, he's kind of I guess a legend. He's been awarded all sorts of things from magazines, like big game magazines. They say that, yeah, here it is. According to animal campaigners, the combined number of animals required for the awards won by King is 528. So that's a minimum of what he's gone around the world and shot over the past 18 years. Started trophy hunting in 2000. And this guy basically is, yeah, he's like the envy of trophy hunters. And it is just absolutely, ridiculous that you can imagine what kind of good this person would be able to do if he actually used his money for doing any kind of good whatsoever. And instead he goes around and shoots helpless animals all over the world, helping to further, drive their extinction. And I've covered that before in other kind of, streams, but a lot of times, the biggest and the best kind of examples of these poor animals are the ones that are shot and killed because they make the best trophies because they're the biggest and the best. And that's what these people are shooting. And this next story is actually an example of that. This elephant recently died. She was very old. She lived for 60 years. The elephant was known as FMU1, called a elephant queen. She was what is called a super tusker. So here, I didn't know this term. I don't know if anybody had heard this before, but this was news to me. So called because their tusks are long enough to reach the ground. So if you look at most elephants nowadays, they do not have tusks this long. They don't get to live long enough. And the elephants of the days gone by, this used to be kind of regular. Their tusks would actually literally drag on the ground when they walked. Sometimes they would use it to root up stuff and all this kind of stuff. And it says here there are now fewer than 30 super tuskers left in Africa. The guy who photographed this beautiful elephant said, "Will photographed her in partnership with the Savo Trust and Kenya Wildlife Service and spent 18 months on the project." And yeah, you can read more about how he captured these amazing shots in his blog. The first time he saw the elephant, says Will says he was speechless. FMU1 was skinny and old, but she strode forward with stately grace. Her tusks were so long that they scraped the ground in front of her. She was like a relic from a bygone era. So this was something that would have been a normal sight to see. Here it is. She had survived through periods of terrible poaching, and it was a victory that her life was not ended prematurely by a snare bullet or poisoned arrow. It's kind of like a miracle that she wasn't killed. And here it is. Animals like FMU1 inevitably attract the unwanted attention of ivory poachers and are regarded as very special because the tusks do not often get that long without breaking. 2 years ago, a 50-year-old super tusker called Sato 2 was killed near the Savo National Park border. It's thought poachers had used the poisoned arrow. And you can see here, super tuskers are very rare these days, precisely because their big tusks make them prime targets for trophy hunters, says Dr. Mark Jones from the Bone Free Wildlife Charity. Because these animals are all too often taken out before they have reached their reproductive prime, super tusker genes are being bred out of elephant populations, and we could very well be seeing the last of them. So, it just goes to show you, like, it's very sad. Like, yeah, you are not going to realize the impact that these idiot trophy hunters are having sometimes until it's too late. I mean, they're saying there's 30 of these, beautiful creatures left in all of Africa. You're going to end up with these smaller, tusk elephants because of this human interaction. It's just incredibly sad. I saw this. I never even knew what a super tusker was. I hadn't even heard of it. And I certainly hadn't seen any elephant with tusks this long before. I mean, I'm not a huge elephant expert or anything, but still, it was very interesting news to me. I just think it's like so sad to see this, and I don't know if people will change in time. And oddly enough, like people like Piers Morgan, who will go on and on about how much he hates vegans and whatever. He was tweeting about this jackass guy, and saying like, oh, or no, was it about this guy? I think he was tweeting about this guy too, but he was also tweeting about somebody who was shooting a lion that was asleep. And then there was video about, shooting a lion. So it's just crazy. Like, people just don't realize like what's going on. What's going on here? Dave confirmed Impossible Foods served dairy and lied about it. This is concerning if we can't trust people. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Nikki, unbelievable really how people prefer to see them dead at their own hands. It's crazy, yeah. I think nature programs are like death warrants for some animals. They are, and it's big business as well. These park services, the licensing for shooting these animals, I mean, it's huge business. But I don't buy it for 1 second that money goes into the local people's pockets. It's concentrated in the hands of a few. And it's again just this lie that there's economic benefit to the people who are local to these beautiful animals. Angry vegan, it's really tragic and infuriating that they've been wiped out. Absolutely it is. I mean, you just see this beautiful animal and it's like, it makes you want to cry. Like, I don't know. people are just insane to think that like you should just shoot this beautiful animal. It's absolutely crazy. Here's a bit of good news. Recently, this came out, where was this? March 20th, so this was yesterday. They found a cow walking around in the Bronx Highway in New York. And they didn't know where it came from, but they were able to corral it and then bring it to a sanctuary where it's going to live out the rest of its life. So there's a 232-acre sanctuary farm, and that is where this cow is going to spend the rest of its days. So that's very happy news. They're investigating how it got loose or how it ended up there. There was also a recent story where a goat was found recently on a highway of some sort. So yeah, sometimes these animals are actually lucky enough to escape from somewhere, and this one, you know, thankfully didn't get hit by a car and managed to be brought over to a sanctuary. So great. I can't stress enough, like, if you have any kind of, you know, financial ability, like, please do support your local sanctuaries. It's really important. And when people go visit those sanctuaries, sometimes, you know, non-vegans especially, once they make that connection with an animal, it really helps. It really helps them to make an ethical connection that the animal on their plate is the same, you know, and that they shouldn't do it. So I think it's great. This one was just an interesting thing. I just wanted to kind of bring it to people's attention and see what you guys thought. I have my opinion on it. But basically, vegans were shocked to learn the author of vegan recipe blog Minimalist Baker that she's not vegan. And so I guess this person called Minimalist Baker, they have an Instagram. They put out tons and tons of like vegan recipes, but I guess people were asking her about her, you know, her own personal kind of like diet. And here it is. It said, answering a fan's question about why she runs a vegan blog when she's not vegan, she said, veganism is so interesting to me, and I love the health benefits and how it helps the planet and confronts mistreatment of animals and factory farming. But right now it's not sustainable for me to eat vegan 100% of the time, and I'm okay with that. So it says, you know, many vegans were shocked, and, you know, they were like, how the heck are you doing this, and blah, 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 and whatever. But then, you know, at the end here it says, others pointed out that Schultz never claimed to be vegan, with some even clarifying that her old recipes have honey in their ingredients. I've looked at her blog every so often for years, and she's never claimed to be vegan. I can even recall how some of her stories mention cutting back on animal products. Her about section even says just says plant-based. I'd be upset if she was claiming to be, but she never has, added the Twitter user, or said the Twitter user. So, you know, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I think as long as she's not claiming to be vegan, and she just, even if she doesn't even say that she's plant-based, but that she's mostly plant-based or whatever, I think it's completely fine, actually. If she's putting up great vegan recipes, like, you know, who cares? Like, people can follow her and, like, you know, take the vegan recipes, take the good, leave the bad. You know, my take on it is that I get annoyed if somebody claims to be vegan, like all these, you know, ex-vegan people, and then they're lying, and then they get caught out, and then they admit, like, oh, I'm super honest, I'm being so transparent, and, you know, that's why I wanted to tell you guys, but I was trying to find a good time to do it, and I've been eating fish and eggs for the past, you know, 5 months, but you know, it just wasn't the right time to tell you. And it's like, yeah, that pisses me off. That makes me angry. Somebody who doesn't even claim to be vegan and just puts out great vegan recipes, like, you know, great. Like, I don't know, like, she should be vegan, of course, like everybody else should. She's obviously got all the information. She can connect the dots. It sounds to me like she's probably a lazy person, in the sense that, like, not sustainable to be vegan. Like, I mean, that probably just means, like, oh, I enjoy going out with people who aren't vegan, and then I don't want to be, you know, awkward, or, like, I'll just add, you know, have whatever they're eating or whatever. That's probably what I would guess is the situation. And that maybe she's probably mostly vegan, you know, other days or when she's cooking for herself. But yeah, it's just kind of a weird, kind of funny thing. But like, I don't think people should be offended by it. Like, that's my view on it. Anyway. Generally, wow, I used her recipes, that's crazy. Yeah, so I guess you'd be surprised then too. Francois, like how Kwanda, or whatever her name is, tried to hide her fish. That was ridiculous. Yeah, absolutely. And I think people have called her out pretty well, so I'm not going to even bother to, you know, talk about that or anything. But yeah, good, you know, good for them to call her out. Like, it's pretty ridiculous. Like, she's lying to her viewers and making money off of it at that. So she's selling all these like vegan diet plans and what have you, and you know, stupid like starvation diets, and then you know, she's not vegan herself. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And then she comes forward and is super open and transparent, and if I hear that word again, I'm gonna just start flipping out, man. It's like, I don't know, like, I just don't like it. Alright, nearing the end here, guys. I just have 2 more stories. This one is a really, really touching article. This is not news, it's not new, it's actually over a year old, or almost a year old actually, and it's a really interesting story. I had never heard of this phenomena. This person who wrote it is talking about how they have some, you know, pretty good sized property. I think they're out in like Oregon or someplace. I don't remember. I can't remember where they are. I think it's in the US somewhere. I think it was Oregon. But anyway, this guy and his wife, they're retired. They live out, you know, on some big piece of land. Oh yeah, here it is. Mountains of Oregon and California border. And they have wild horses that go kind of, you know, come onto their land, and they hike there and all this kind of stuff. And they have gotten to be really friendly with some of the wild horses, and they kind of have named some of them. They become friends with some of them. And the guy goes on and tells this story about how one of the horses that that they have befriended, unfortunately, got stuck in some barbed wire or razor wire. And there's an interesting point in the article here that I didn't know or wasn't aware of, is how much barbed wire and razor wire fencing has been left throughout the lands in the U.S., including parklands, because of all the cattle farming and ranching. I've covered this in previous streams if anybody hasn't seen it, but a lot of times, like BLM land, that's the Bureau of Land Management, is actually given out to the animal agriculture industries, to cattle ranchers, so that they can get really, really cheap land to graze their animals on. So it's like, it's a huge government subsidy, and they basically will actually sometimes capture and kill wild horses, because they actually, you know, compete with the cattle ranchers, cows and stuff, and steers, sorry, for the grazing. And so there's actually legacy wire, you know, barbed wire fence and razor wire fence throughout, like, you know, thousands of miles of like you know, wilderness and stuff, and park land and stuff like that. And sometimes, you know, wild animals will get stuck in them. And so one of the horses that this couple had kind of befriended, they came across the horse as it was dying, and it had gotten stuck and cut up its leg really badly and all this kind of stuff, and it was literally dying. And what they observed was that the families of the different wild horse groups in that area were all coming to that horse as it was laying dying, and they were like paying their last respects to the horse. They knew that this other horse was dying, and they were doing this kind of like breath exchange, and they were coming like one by one, and the leader, like stallions or the lead mares of the groups, were coming and paying their, like, you know, saying goodbyes to this horse. And they were saying that they've never seen this, and the guy was actually had a park services person with him when he was out on this hike, showing them some stuff. And so they saw it too, so it's not just an uncorroborated thing. This is the horse after it had already died. All the other animals had already left, but this horse had grown up with this white horse, and like basically he stood over the body of the horse for like a long time afterward, and all this kind of stuff. It's a very, very touching story, and yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's really, really shows you like kind of what, you know, some of these animals, like how complex their emotions are. And, you know, people are, you know, who are kind of anti-vegans will say, oh, I'm anthropomorphizing, and then this is just, you know, I'm imagining the human emotions in there, and what have you. But it's like, man, if anybody who's really actually been around animals, like, you know that that is not anthropomorphizing. That is genuine, like, you know, concern and emotion and love. I mean, animals definitely love each other, and they, they feel those kinds of things that are very much, you know, what we think of as human emotions. I challenge anybody to tell this guy who wrote this article that he's wrong. Like, I'm pretty sure he's gonna probably slap you in the mouth. So yeah, like, it's a beautiful article. I definitely recommend people read this. It's really, really nice. I just think it's a really touching story. So definitely check this out if you guys can. This is kind of the last story that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to probably have to get going pretty soon. But somebody that I've given a shout out to before shared this, Herbivore Club. They're on Facebook as well, and they're also on Twitter. I follow them all the time. They have great posts. He posted this in a couple weeks ago. It was like, what do you call it? Women's Day, International Women's Day. He posted this story. This was actually from last year. It was a review of the suffragists and the suffragettes. And this was actually a very interesting topic to me. I knew nothing about this. Basically, I didn't even know that there was a difference. I didn't know there was a suffragist and a suffragette. And of course, the person posting this, Herbivore Club, they were posting it in the way that it related to veganism. Because a lot of times, vegan activists are called out for their particular form of activism. A lot of times we're told we're being too militant, too aggressive, whatever. And he said, look at the parallels that happened with the women's rights movement. And I can guarantee you that as a somebody who went through the entire range of the U.S. school system, we were not taught about this in school in the U.S. I don't know if anybody watching was taught about this, but I knew nothing about this. This was very interesting reading. Basically, it talks about how going back from the end of the 1800s or whatever, the suffragists were women who were basically campaigning to get the right to vote, get the right to own property, all this kind of stuff. And they believed that by being level-headed and calm and all this kind of stuff and law-abiding, that they were going to get the right to vote just based on the sheer merit of their intellectual argument and their kind of ethical argument, that they shouldn't be second-class citizens, that they should be given the right to vote and all this kind of stuff. They didn't really make any headway, and along came the suffragettes, who were basically the militant version of the suffragists. And so they got fed up with the lack of change, and they started doing crazy direct action style protesting. So it's like, here's a good quote, "I am what you call a hooligan." So what happened is there was an internal debate even in the suffragists, because these more angry militant women who were in this group, they were saying this isn't enough. Writing letters and talking to politicians and talking to people, this isn't enough. Like, I don't want to collect signatures, I want action. And so these people started doing stuff that was crazy. Like, they threw themselves in front of the Queen's carriage. There was a lady who got trampled to death. She literally committed suicide by throwing herself in front of the carriage. I don't know if it was the Queen or somebody else. I can't remember now. Don't quote me on that. Oh, Prime Minister's car. Sorry. Okay, so sorry. Here it is. From 1912, the militant tactics became more violent. Mary Richardson took a meat cleaver to a painting at London's National Gallery, while Sikh Princess Sophia Duleep Singh threw herself in front of the Prime Minister's car. So, I mean, they tied themselves up to fences. They starved themselves. They were arrested, and they went on hunger strikes in the prisons, in the jail. And the jail keepers force-fed them with tubes. Like, it was like really crazy. And then people saw that. There was like news coverage, and people were like absolutely shocked by seeing a force feeding on somebody who was doing like a non-violent, even peaceful protest, and being arrested for it, and then doing a hunger strike, and they were being force fed. And all of these kinds of things started gathering more attention. And even within the movement, like I say, the suffragists were actually like basically saying, like, look, man, we don't want to associate with these people. They're violent, they're militant. Like, that's not us. Like, we're just trying to be nice. And so you can see here, law-abiding suffragists And so the president of the suffragists was trying to distance herself. So, you know, like this is so closely paralleling what we are seeing now in some of the vegan, you know, circles. I just found this incredibly enlightening and just really, really interesting. And you know, they're raising the point of the article here. So who actually won? You know, whose actions got women the right to vote? And they're basically, you know, the person writing this saying, it's not possible to imagine women winning the vote without the suffragettes. The suffragettes, again, being the ones that were the militant, you know, activists. The militant organizing, particularly of working class women, pointed to the possibility of a movement that would grow and could potentially become an enormous mass movement. Both sides of the movement halted their campaigns in 1914 in order to support the war efforts, blah, blah, blah. But it was the suffragists who said that if you give the vote to more classes of men, then you must include women. So it's like the suffragists started it, but it was the suffragettes that made it be like, you know. So here it is. Ms. Connolly agrees that the suffragettes were inspired by the suffragists, but that ultimately both movements played their part in winning the vote by organizing women en masse in so many different ways. So my hat's off to these ladies. I had no idea the suffering that these poor women went through to get the right to vote. I will actually be doing more research on this because it's personally like just fascinating to me, the lengths that people went to, including literally killing yourself to bring attention to the you know, the movement and the cause. I mean, that's just absolutely mind-boggling that like women were arrested, force-fed, you know, beaten. Like, I mean, it's just crazy. It's absolutely beyond crazy. And I think, you know, in another, hopefully not too short a time, we're going to be looking back on veganism, you know, the movement, the people who are the militant vegans or whatever, in much the same way. I'm not in any way, shape, or form advocating violence towards people or anything like that. But, you know, the things that people get called out for, like, oh, direct action is too, you know, militant. They're going into restaurants and they're ruining people's meals. It's like, well, yeah, like, you know, what's worse, the animals getting killed or your meal being ruined? Or like, you know, the, you know, things where they're sneaking onto farms and like showing, you know, footage, the ag-gag logs, trying to suppress those people, you know, all these kinds of things. It's a very strong parallel. So I definitely encourage everybody to read through this article. It's very, very interesting. And also follow Herbivore Club on Twitter and YouTube. They're really awesome. Okay, let's see. What are you guys saying? Suffragettes were literally terrorists, blowing things up and killing people. Okay, Nikki, it means a lot to me because I was born in London and couldn't imagine not having equal rights, even if that doesn't mean pay. Generally, it's women's like that who give women a bad name. Yeah, right? That's probably what they said about them, too. Nah, women in general don't have a bad name. Just feminists. Ex-suffragettes. Well, again, you know, these people were just trying to get the same rights that men enjoyed. And they were just trying to get it for themselves. They had every right to do so, and it's awesome that they won. Let's see. Francois, most women are not feminists and happen to be great people. Women are awesome. Feminists are ideological, crazy people. I think that's too broad of a you know, statement. I would certainly not back you on that, Francois. Yeah, I would certainly not want you guys getting into a fight about this, but I think that's a little bit of a dangerous minefield that you walked into, Francois. You're not going to come out of that nicely. All right. Last thing, and then maybe I'll take some questions, and then I'll be going. This is coming from somebody that I follow on Twitter. Their handle or whatever is at OEZLEM Sandra. Salo is the whatever the name, and I follow her. She's awesome. Just wanted to give a shout out. I know some of the articles that I got today came from her tweets, but I can't remember which ones, so I don't know. But thank you, and hope you're watching. And then, yeah, if anybody's on Twitter, follow Salo as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me switch back to the other view. Here we go. So I hope you guys enjoyed the articles. There were a lot of things to cover as usual, but I think these were some pretty good ones. So I was pretty happy with what I found for this time around. Let's see the comments here. No, you need to look into it, man. They were not trying to get the same rights. They wanted privileges and they got them. Oh man, this should be interesting. What, the privilege to vote? The privilege to, like, I don't know, end up with their kids, like in a, you know, in a legal proceeding if they were divorced, stuff like that. Like, I think that's a pretty nice thing. There are two ideas of equality: equality of outcome and equality of opportunity. Wow. I recently saw a very interesting picture. I don't remember who posted it. There was a some kind of sporting event that people were watching, and there was like a big, you know, wall. There was like an adult watching, and there was a kind of like a middle-sized person watching, and there was a little person watching. Maybe it was a kid. I don't know. I don't mean little person and like that, but it said equality, and they showed that there were 3 boxes, and they each were standing on one of these boxes. So the tall guy was standing on the box, and he was probably over the wall by, you know, like half his torso was over. The middle guy was just over, so like, you know, the wall was like up to his neck. He was kind of like peering over the wall to see the event. And the little like kid or little person or whatever was like basically like not even able to get over the wall to look. They were kind of like grasping the wall and trying to pull up, and they were all standing equally on the same height boxes. And they said that's equality. And then they shifted to the next picture, and it said equity. And they basically took like one box and gave it to the guy in the middle so he could still see out. The tall guy could just stand on his own 2 feet. He didn't need it. And the little guy got 2 boxes, and then he was able to see over as well. And I think that's kind of, you know, a pretty good idea of what I think about what you wrote as far as opportunity and equality. I'm not talking about communism. I'm not talking about government enforced anything. But sadly, I think a lot of people, both when it comes to racial disparities in income, in education opportunities, and all this kind of stuff, and when it comes to women's kind of distribution, it is very, very often related to the kind of thing that I just told you. You have the equal opportunity, but the outcome is certainly different, to use your words. And yeah, I mean, like, if you look at most places in the Western world, women are every bit as engaged in the workforce as men. They are still expected, though, in many circles, in most circles, to do more at home. They are the ones having the babies. They are the ones who lose time from their career. They are the ones who don't get the big project when they're pregnant because they don't want to have the project suffer when the lady goes on maternity leave. They are the ones who have gaps because of that. They are the ones who are expected to go pick up the kid when it's sick, and all this kind of stuff. The list goes on and on and on. Women definitely have it harder than men in these regards, and I don't think, even if you were to argue for them to have some kind of special privileges or special rights above and beyond what men enjoy, I don't think it would still be an even playing field. Just look at how many people, who cooks the meals, who does the dishes, who does the washing of the kids' clothes and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I can tell you, like, Hungary is very much still a patriarchal society. I think the US is very much a patriarchal society. Those are the places where I've lived the most and where I've experienced the most, and I feel pretty confident in saying that that is still the case today. And yeah, I don't know. That's my view on it. You guys have been writing too. What is going on? Okay. Privilege to vote without having to be drafted. Well, yeah, I don't believe in drafting people for war anyway. I'm a conscientious objector. in my diet and in my war stance as well. Pal, you still doing Kung Fu? You know what? I actually haven't been going to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the past, like, maybe month and a half or so. And it's actually quite sad. Some of it is that I've been really busy. I'm going to have some big announcements coming up for the channel. My wife and I are pretty much buying a new place. We're in the process of it. We've signed the sale agreement or the purchase agreement, but there's a ton of stuff going on with it, and there's a lot of paperwork to be taken care of, and it's crazy. I'll fill you guys in, but it's been really kind of busy, so I have not been going. I also have been kind of trying to save money, so that kind of was one of the decisions too. So it might be something I have to put on the back burner for a little bit, but I will definitely keep trying to train in the near future. There are women in the military. Yes, there are. Exactly. None of them have to sign up for the draft to be able to vote or gain other benefits that come with selective service, though. For men, it is mandatory. No draft where I'm from either. In some countries, it's mandatory for women too. Like Israel, I know, is they actually, it's not even a draft. It's like you have to serve, and women have to serve too. In USA, though, them's the breaks. Me too, and women's right to vote. I am for everyone's right to vote. No draft, ideally. Breaks. Cool. Okay, yeah. Thanks. We're hugging it out. Okay, good. You guys are still friends. Good. Damn, dude, you need to visit a place like Brazil or Afghanistan if you want to see patriarchy. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that there can't be more extreme versions of it. I'm sure there are. But I'm opposed to that as well. Like, you're not really convincing me to think that what I see in the Western countries isn't bad. You're just saying that that's worse, and I agree. Yep, it is stressful, but it's good. I mean, I feel really good, Jen. So I think there's big stuff happening. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Feel free to spend money on an external mic. Yeah, I'm not joking about what I said before. Like, support me on Patreon. I'll get a mic tomorrow. But yeah, I'll get a mic anyway, even if you guys don't. But yeah, I'm trying to save money. I actually want to get like a better camera as well, because I've been looking at some some of these like little, you know, GoPro style cameras. They're like really cheap now, and they can be used as webcams as well, and it's, I'm sure, higher resolution than this, so maybe the sound is better too. And I might also just try moving my computer down on the bottom, because right now it's on the top of the table next to me, so that's kind of a bad thing. So maybe I'll try to do that, and hopefully that'll improve the sound. But it is really loud, and I know that. Maybe I can get like a little like lapel mic or just a headset mic. It'll be closer to my mouth, so it'll be better. But then you guys will hear like swallowing noises when I'm drinking my water. I hate that, so I don't know if that's any better. All right, guys. So yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I think I'm gonna go say goodnight. I got a long day ahead planned tomorrow, so yeah, that's it. Thanks for everybody for being on. Really appreciate it. It's been fun. And yeah, see you guys in the next one. Bye.